Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Fort Bragg's backyard, this is the show that put the 110 Nation on the map. There is only one nation, the 110 Nation, and you're listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show, covering each and every sport across the board. There is no sport too large or too little. It's time to talk the talk. Here we go. Here's the man, the founder, and your host, Mr. CJ Sports.
I want to welcome everybody to the 110 Nation Sports Show. I am your host, Mr. CJ Sports. You can follow me at CJ Sports 1. You can follow the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. Make sure you check us out on Facebook, my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports, the 110 Nation fan page, 110 Nation Sports. Also, check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com, for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. Got to make sure that I thank Fit for Life. You guys can check them out on Facebook, Fit for Life. You can also go to our site, www.the110nation.com, or the110nationsports.com. Pretty nice little banner on the right-hand side. All you got to do is click on it. It lets you know if there's a location near you. 24/7, 365. Get your gym on. Clean facility, courtesy staff, all the equipment you need. Make sure that you guys check that out, Fit for Life. Also got to thank Snafu Seasoning. You can find they're the official sponsor of Racing with Big Sweat Thursday nights, 9 p.m. 100% all-natural meat rub, no preservatives. Make sure you guys check them out. That's Snafu Seasoning. And I got to thank Mile High Radio and I-95 Sports for rebroadcasting and syndicating our shows to help us continue to grow. Without those marketing partners and without those networks, we would not be able to continue to grow at the rate we're growing. So glad to have them aboard and glad to be here tonight. Tuesday night, our number one night here on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network. We got Mark Rette from Rette Jones Racing joining us at 9 o'clock. And we got Izzo, our NHL Expert, joining us at 9:30. So very excited about having both of those join us in that last hour. Don't forget, those that have been missing out and wonder why we're on, a week ago we jumped up to being a 3-hour show, just so much going on, so much sports to talk about, so many guests. There for a while. We were scheduling out 2 weeks in advance because we had so much going on. So we decided to jump up to 3 hours. We jumped up to 3 hours to give us plenty of time. Speaking of guests, we got Hannah Newhouse in the house. That was not a way that was supposed to come out. We got excuse me. We got Hannah Newhouse joining the studio tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. And, of course, we're going to have our writer, Shannon Bullen, join us as well in the studio tomorrow night. He'll actually be hanging out where is my co-host at? Kind of straight on having in the studio. I wasn't really ready to jump in anything. thought he was going to be in the studio. Got some conversations and things I want to talk about, and I just didn't want to jump into them without him, so we didn't have to go back over what I've already talked. And now I'm just kind of like stuck here in his space. Oh, goodness. We're going to talk about Ben Simmons tonight. We're going to talk about, God, what was the other topic that I shared on social media that I thought was interesting? I even tagged Mike in it. What was the topic that I tagged Mike in? Good God, now I forgot what I even, and he's going to have to tell me because I thought it was a very interesting story, whatever it was I tagged Mike in. It was something that I wanted to jump into early into the show, too. Mike, you're going to have to remind me. What did I just tag you in on the 110 Nation Sports page?
It was the two NASCAR things is what I put up was interesting to me.
I tagged you in something when I posted over the 110 fan page just recently, like within the last 30 minutes.
Okay, I didn't see the latest one. I saw the one that you put in with the publicity with tonight's show, but I didn't see. You have to go over there and look, I guess.
I'm trying to look real quick. I don't know why I can't get my throat up here.
Because I put just so the fans. I'm sorry, I'm a little late there, CJ, today.
I just didn't know what to say. Like, I was waiting for you to call in at any time. I didn't want to jump into any topics because there's a few topics I want to make sure that you're here for, so I don't have to go back over it again. Especially Ben Simmons. Oh, Sean Payton talking about the referees. I didn't want to get into that topic. I didn't even know they were full-time employees, so I thought that was their primary job. So we're going to talk about that as well. I didn't
know that either. They usually have weekday jobs,
That's just what I assumed. I figured they probably jumped on a plane Friday and then they got back home Monday or Tuesday, and I figured that I don't know. That's just what their paycheck consists of. I didn't know that. I learned something new, but we're gonna definitely talk about that a little bit before we jump into all that. I was kind of spacing out because I didn't want to jump into these topics and then have you come back in. It was just really weird not to have you in there usually. And let the truth be told, I'll put it out there. Most of the time, Mike is in the studio before I even get in the studio. Like, when I go to log in, Mike's already there. So when I call in and Mike's not in the studio already, it's already weird to me anyway. So I didn't know I had some dead airspace there because I didn't know quite what to say and because I didn't know. That's not like it. So let me know. Let me know what we got going on Friday night, and then also where they can find you.
Good enough. Thanks, CJ. Friday night we have a good show again. Kyle Sofa will be joining us, and the third guest I wanted to get is Bob Finan. Still haven't heard from him. Put another private message into him, so hopefully I'll know something by the morning. If not, if he gets back to me, he's usually on Facebook, early morning. So he'll probably get back to me at that point. And then we also have Rowan Pinnock, who will be, we have at least two guests already locked in. The second guest is Rowan Pinnock, who will be talking about his whaling modified season. He's one of the whaling guys that goes up and down the East Coast, all the tracks. So we'll be talking to him about his season. And also a business venture that he is involved in which I mentioned last night, was a little strange to me, only because I know there are a lot of auto parts places and high-performance auto parts and so forth for race cars, but Rowan and his crew chief and the crew chief, Rette, his significant other, will be on an business venture selling just wheels. Wheels for any type of race car. And they are headquartered, as I understand, in Connecticut or Massachusetts, in the Northeast anyway. And also, I believe will sell to any race driver anywhere. Again, I'll clarify that with Rowan when he comes on Friday night. So another interesting and diverse show with a potentially an announcer, a racer, and a business venture people. So interesting how the racers get involved in different aspects at times of racing, and of course he tied that in with the business venture with the selling of wheels. So that's rather interesting. I thought that was interesting for the fans to know, some of whom I'm sure are racers, judging by the guests we have on the 110 Nation. So another diverse program on Friday night there, CJ.
Definitely looking forward to Friday night. I'm definitely looking forward to hanging out. Definitely. Sean Payton brought up an interesting, and for those that missed it, Sean Payton went on record to say, we're the only league with officials who have primary other jobs, which is really madness. We can pay these guys. They should be full-time NFL officials, and they should be working throughout the week communicating. Sean Payton has a very good point. Like we kind of led into this before we got into this. Neither one of us knew that they weren't full-time. Like, I just assumed that that's what they got paid. They got a yearly salary.
I just follow along, DJ. The reason I say that is for a long time when the commentators, and I'm going back to Kurt Dowdy and even some of the guys on cable now, I remember they used to put up on the screen, on the TV screen, headlines and whatever they were, and then they always mentioned, oh, he's a bookkeeper by trade, he's this by trade, and by virtue of how they announced the officials, the commentators at one time used to say, oh, so-and-so's this and that, and used to mention his day job. So I just assumed all along that was the case, And like you say, we both learned something with that post.
Just think how much different this league would be if these referees did have this as their primary job, that they did nothing else. They spent the week communicating, going over film, catching the mistakes they made, learning from the mistakes, and everything else, versus hopping on a plane probably sometime Friday evening or Saturday morning, depending on where their game is and depending on what time they get off work from their primary job, go show up, officiate a game, and then hop back on the plane after the game or the next morning and go back home to their primary job and their family. We throw a lot of blame and make a lot of comments about the officials, and I'm not making excuses for the officials, but I might not have said some of the things that I've said if I would have known that, this is, kind of a weekend job that, to me this is like Joe Schmo showing up at Joe Burger joint, Saturday and Sunday afternoon, and that's just what he's there for. And it just kind of, just to show up weekend kind of thing, and that's it. Some of the calls that they make, though, there's really no excuse, regardless how little they work. But if the NFL would invest into their employees and invest into making these careers, and so these guys can concentrate on doing their job and learning from their mistakes instead of just, okay, I'm going to go hop on the plane, I'm going to Kansas City, I'm going to officiate the Kansas City Raiders game. My flight is set. Hopefully this game doesn't go in overtime because this game should be done by 4 o'clock. My flight to go back home is at 7 o'clock kind of ordeal. And that's kind of the end of it versus, okay, we get a, stay in a hotel, or even if they do catch the flight, then you're on a conference call and you're going back over film and going back over what you missed and what should have been changed and, tricks of the trade that maybe some of these teams are getting away with, that we see illegal picks sometimes. We see, some players getting away with pass interference and everything else, and just because they've manipulated their bodies in a way and have learned how to manipulate, just different things that could help improve, better absorb the rules and better study the rules. Just like these players watch game film over and over and over, these guys should be doing the same things to improve on what they did and fix their mistakes. And, at this point now, I'm not going to throw the officiating staff underneath the bus so much. Now I'm kind of double-fisting it and kind of throwing both the NFL and the officiating crew underneath the bus, because it's the reason, the NFL is the reason why the officiating crew is only at the level that it's at.
Yes, and one of the things that I found interesting when you mentioned the officials, too, is apparently the Seattle Seahawks, of all teams, and we've said almost from the beginning of this season that they haven't played the way they have in the past few seasons. Apparently, I don't know whether it was Pete Carroll, or somebody came out and made a statement from the Seattle organization, whether it was Pete Carroll, one of the players, or what, basically the officials. And Peter King, who I've mentioned many times, and I put it up on Monday Morning Quarterback, his column, which he runs every week, had his thoughts on what, he's answering them saying, the officiating is not the problem for the Seattle Seahawks, it's how they're playing. So, he took it right back at them. And I happen to like Peter King as a writer, and I think he's the most entertaining. If I had a choice, I would read him over some of the football columnists, and he threw it right back at Seattle, saying it's how you're playing, not the officiating. But and this, they're not the only team to complain about the officials. But I just found it interesting that came out, and then today with what you posted, and again posted to me, and I had forgotten because it was earlier, and then I didn't see it on that one page, but I had seen it. The other thing was about the officials with what Peter King wrote, and that's what I thought you were referring to at first, but then you tagged me. But I didn't get a chance to see it on that particular page, but the 110 page. But that was interesting. And the thing that stuck out to me, of all the things I posted, and this was like later in the day that this came out, the two NASCAR things that stuck out to me. First of all, Jamie McMurray is going to be getting a new sponsor, and that Chip Ganassi, that team, that whole organization is going to Goodwrench. And the three things that stuck out to me with that was one thing with just that was Goodwrench, the last time they were a major sponsor or a main sponsor on a car, to me was Dale Earnhardt, Sr. So Chip Ganassi ended up with that, and my first thought with that, yes.
It's Gear Rich.
Oh, okay.
Not Mr. Goodrich, but Gear Rich.
I thought I misread it. Okay, I put it up there, but I misread it. Okay. All right, correction. Thank you, sir. And the things I don't have to be, there's two things that stuck out to me with the other thing that I pointed it out to you in a private message as well. I swear that Hendrick Motorsports listens to our shows, because last night we had a major, conversation, you and I, about will Jeff Gordon come back. And there was two articles straight out of Hendrick. One saying, somebody quoted Junior as saying that he feels Jeff will come back. And then Rick Hendrick actually said, and I said, I surmised that he might have, still had him in his, black book to call in case of an emergency. And he said, Jeff Gordon is my top substitute driver whenever somebody goes down. So there you have the answer. Both Rick Hendrick and Junior thinking Jeff will come back and, in a substitute role should something happen. And I don't know. I feel at this point the way you do. I think they should give the younger kids a chance. I mean, I pointed last night, and I know you were going in the same direction. All the guests we have on this show, your show, and Steve's show, the younger people don't get a break. And it's interesting. We have Mark Rette coming on. Maybe we'll ask him about that. I would like to ask him about that as well. That if they keep putting, as an example, Jeff Gordon in a Hendrick car after he quote unquote retired, how are these people that Mark develops and then teams like Mark, how are they going to get their break? Very interesting. Very, very interesting.
I'm not even going to get my hopes up that Jeff Gordon is retired. Like, I thought it was an interesting headline that I saw when it was brought up, the fact that in Martinsville underneath the light, as much as Jeff Gordon likes and the success he's had at Martinsville, would he come back for an opportunity to ride it underneath the lights once? I mean,
well, it's interesting. In the same two articles, I don't know whether it was the one where Junior was quoted or Rick Hendrick, but in one of them, Jeff was the only one that said he would only come back if asked by, or it wasn't was an indefinite thing, but I'm sure, based on what both, and I said it last night, what Rick Hendrick had said earlier in the season, plus now it came out in black and white. Now there's at least two articles stating that the possibility exists that he would come back as a substitute driver. Now, because it's the week of Martinsville or the week immediately following Martinsville, the situation with the lights are brought up. And, again, Mark was the first person to bring that up, that even they were going under the lights. I hadn't known that until a few weeks ago. Mark brought that up. And, we were talking about Martinsville going under the lights. But just the fact that, again, it came out the night or the day after we speak about it on our show, it just that's why I keep saying I think sometimes they do listen to our show in a positive sense. But I think we have a few listeners from Hendrick Motorsports, CJ.
I don't know. I just know not to get my hopes up. As much as I hope that this is finally the end of Gordon being out in the car, I could see some circumstance happening to include the possibility of just the idea of being at Martinsville underneath the light. I just have this feeling that, this unfortunate feeling, better yet, that we're going to see Jeff Gordon in race again.
It's very possible. The way things, the way things look, at least as they're stated right now, it's very possible that could happen. Based on the two articles, plus the video I saw earlier, and and the interesting thing is however old Jeff is, and I didn't catch in there. It's in there. It's like in his 30s or 40s at this point. Hendrick, I mean, there couldn't be a better advocate for Jeff Gordon, even if even if Jeff Gordon's not asking him to do this. He is saying that he feels that Jeff Gordon retired too soon. Now, I know you feel differently, CJ, and probably I do too, although I'm not as vocal as you, and I don't look at it, as, I agree with you, but you're just, I won't say anti-Gordon, but at this point it's one of those things where everybody's tired of, what it is I think I know what it is in general, is when a guy retires, like Mark Martin waited until he was 50-some-odd years old and was still doing it. But to his credit, he retired once and didn't come back. Okay? Once Mark Martin retired, he retired and you haven't heard from Mark Martin again. Okay?
He retired. He did retire. He did retire, though. He retired. Technically, the first time he retired the same year Rusty Wallace. They went on the farewell tour together that year. And then he ended up coming back and running for Marco, or actually came back and did the 0-1 car. Then he went over to Marco Waltrip Racing. So technically he did come back out of retirement.
That's right, he did. But he wasn't
Rusty Wallace was actually on in retirement and safe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had forgotten that the timeline that he did come back. I was thinking for Waltrip, but he came back for the 0-1 too. I just thought I remember him jumping from Roush to a different team, and I thought that was the 0-1. But he might have come back, from retirement. I didn't know he directly retired off the Viagra car, which was the Roush car. But,
he retired. He did that whole farewell tour with. I can remember him and Rusty Wallace sitting in a rocking chair at least one of the races. But they did their farewell tour together, and Rusty went on and went up to the studio, and Mark Martin. I think the first year he got talked into doing the first year was a full ride, and that's when he got second in the points. And then I believe the next year he only committed to so many races, and then he came out like a bat out of hell. And a lot of people are wondering if he would change his mind to go full time, but he didn't. And then he went over and helped Marco Waltrip Racing. So
right. But I was thinking about this last night when we were talking about the Gordon thing and the retirement and so on. I liken it to something I've heard recently that's not sports related, but it's a famous person related. And for the last week or so, because he's coming out with a book or has written a book, Phil Collins, the singer, mentioned that he might come back and go on tour, but he had retired for years and years and nobody heard from him. And he admitted in his book and in the interviews that I saw over the weekend that people were just getting sick of him. And he was hearing his own songs over and over again, and it was driving him nuts. So he just, backed away, and then he had some health issues along with that. But basically, he was talking about, touring and whatever else, and people just got so fed up with him that they stopped listening to his music. And now they want him back, but he's been away for a while, and that's where he got the idea that, just when you're so omnipresent everywhere, that can be a negative for you. And I have a feeling that some of these athletes, and we're speaking about Jeff Gordon now, but, that after a while, and like you say, Junior is a perfect example, with fan, popularity, he doesn't have to do anything in terms of wins and losses to gain popularity with fans, and you expect that to die out. And in Junior's case, it hasn't. But I think some of the reason that Gordon grates on you is that he is, like I said, I had forgotten the timeline of Mark Martin, because he hasn't been as, I look at it this way, as intrusive is the word I would use, as Jeff Gordon has. As Jeff Gordon has been, and the fact that they're just so present after their retirement, I think that one way or another, you either retire or you stay, and the one thing that was brought up and why people keep mentioning Hendrick is first of all, he still has the ownership stake in I think it's Jimmy's car and a couple of maybe his own, the 24, I don't know. But I know he at least has part ownership in the Jimmy Johnson team. So I don't see everybody that quoted in the article about Hendrick Motorsports don't see him going to another team like Roush or something. He would be a substitute driver solely because he's the co-owner. And as long as he's co-owner, he has some stake in what goes on. So, but I think that's, just the idea of, retire already. That's sooner or later, that's what fans are going to, fans end up when athletes are too much in front of the media. I think that contributes to it. And like in the Phil Collins case, just famous people in general, if they become so in front of the fans and don't, they can. It's like overkill is the best way I can think of it, and that's possibly why Jeff grates on you there, CJ. I don't know. You could have your own biases too, but versus other athletes, but that could definitely be part of it. Retiring and unretiring, and are you gone or you're not gone? What's your status? It's just it gets to be ridiculous sometimes.
I mean, let's be honest. When was the last time Gordon was really relevant? If people don't put out the fact that he was one of the 4 cars at Homestead last year, the only reason that even happened was because of what Kansas did to Logano. If Logano would have been knocked out of the race, Gordon wouldn't have even been part of that Final Four. He had a consistent year, but when was the last time Gordon was really a contender, like a legit contender? I think that's the other part. Like I said, I grew up being a Gordon fan. I can remember back in the Busch Grand National days. I can remember driving the number 1 car. I can remember him making his debut in this at the time with the Cup Series. I can remember, I got collector's items and stuff that I've collected over the years being a Gordon fan. The only reason I even went away from being a Gordon fan was I just got tired of winning all the time. Like in the NFL, yeah, you can have a team go 16-0 and have an undefeated season. It's really no big deal because I got 15 other games I could be watching. But there's only one race on Sunday, and I don't want to see the same person dominate all the time. So Then I got old.
Right.
And then I became a Johnson fan when he first came out, and then watching him win all the time got old. Don't get me wrong, I would like to see him win 7 and 8 championship. I know a lot of people are, oh, no, you didn't. Look, I didn't get to see Earnhardt win all his championships. I didn't get to watch Petty. I was too young. I wasn't really, even though I was watching it, I wasn't watching it. I just like you can hear something, but it doesn't mean you were listening. And I didn't get to see Richard Petty win any of his championships. I've got an opportunity to watch someone get 6 championships. Not everybody gets to see that. That's just like, as much as I put down the Carolina Panthers, and I feel that there wasn't going to be a lot of weight behind an undefeated season last year, it would have been nice to see an undefeated season because you don't get to see one in your every lifetime. Look, the 72 Dolphins, the 46 Browns, it's like the only other 2 undefeated seasons that's ever been done. So, of course, I wanted to see the Patriots back in, 2007 go undefeated. Of course, as simple as their schedule was, yes, I wanted to see the Carolina Panthers go undefeated because not everybody gets to see it. There's just, think about the home run record. I know that PEDs now play a lot of factor into what their numbers are now, and don't know who to believe has done it naturally or who's done it with being on supplements or PEDs, whatever you want to call it. But, look how long it took and that record stood for Roger Maris with 61 home runs for all those years. Yes, it was great to see something finally break it because that, not every generation got to see, these kind of home runs and these kind of numbers. Got tired of watching. I got tired of watching Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
I got tired of Jimmy Johnson winning all the time, of course, even though I still want to see him win the championships. And so at that time, it became, because at that point in time when I jumped ship, I wasn't quite ready to be a Kyle Busch fan, and I knew Danica through the rumor mills was making her way around the Sprint Cup Series. So the next couple of years, I just kind of had sentimental favorites. Mark Martins, Martin Truex when he was at Marco Waltrip Racing, so forth and so forth. Until, Danica made her jump over. Then, I jumped aboard. I was a fan of her IRL, but then I became, jumped on the Danica train at that point in time. And then Kyle Busch is just one of the guys that I've really liked and enjoyed, and just got to the point I started buying his stuff and collector's items. And, at 2 4th of July ago, we spent like $50 on a die-cast card at a parade. And that was the driver I chose.
Well, I unfortunately on the negative side, I saw the 72 Dolphins, and the reason I followed them was, unfortunately, they gave my Jets fits, and since that team, it's a funny thing. Like there's 2 besides the New England Patriots, because the Patriots have everybody's number in the AFC East, but the one up and down team in the AFC East that always seems to have the Jets' number is the Miami Dolphins. The Jets could even go into Buffalo at times and beat Buffalo, even in the Marv Levy years. But the Dolphins, for some reason, going back to the teams that A.J. Dewey was on, and of course the 17-0 were the undefeated anyway, not 17 at the time, 14. 14-0 Dolphins, the 72 Dolphins, they always seem to have the Jets number. And as far as NASCAR, I saw Richard drive, Petty, and his son, Kyle, and, I followed a majority, if not all of them, I followed a majority of Dale Sr.'s 7 titles. So, I've been following racing, like I said, from the time I was 10 years old. When I went to my local track with my dad, the first time I was 10 years old, and not knowing that, of course, at the time that I would ever become a journalist and be writing about motorsports, and then obviously, continuing on with you, graciously giving me the slot here. on the radio as well as writing for you, and had no idea that was going to occur. But I always followed NASCAR as a fan from the age of 10. So I was able to see a lot of these people, and just the timeline, like I say, sometimes was confusing. But I don't know that I really. Once in a while, I'd get a hat. I had a Mark Martin Army hat. When he did the 0-1 call, and that was, I wasn't a great spender as far as memorabilia, but I did follow the sport, and it's funny how you remember certain things, in terms of sports, and the teams that stick out. I can remember the teams that didn't necessarily do well in the league, but gave my personal teams, the teams I follow, fits. Such as Miami, and things like that. And that's the fun of sports, I guess. And like you say, you have your favorites who are sometimes, because they become too much, for lack of a better term, sometimes it can turn on you. And I think that you probably are not the only fan who feels that way about Jeff Gordon. I am sure there were fans of Jeff Gordon when he was the first car, not that I remember, because I remember the number one also, the white car with the red. I remember a white car with the red numerals. I think that was the Bush car you were referring to, but as far as the 24, when he started with the Rainbow Warrior team scheme. And, it just, like you say, after a while it gets to be too much. And the only driver that I see not going through that is Junior. Junior seems to be as popular now with the fans, and how many times are we going to repeat it, CJ? He seems to be the one that is Teflon, even in that respect. People are not clamoring for him to retire. I mean, the haters maybe, but he's got enough of a fan base where if he came back, the way it looks, if he comes back next year and is still driving competitively, there are not going to be a lot of fans that are going to be upset about it. It's just amazing, that some athletes, have that ability. And even in another sport, if you say, we started talking last night a little bit about Michael Jordan versus LeBron. When Jordan basketball for a year or season or two, maybe, I want to say one. I think he just took a 1 year off to do the baseball with the White Sox minor league team, and found out he didn't play baseball half as well as he played basketball, and came back. I think it was just one season, but again, fans were, saying, "Oh, good riddance." He came back and had equal success to, what he had before. And the only difference was he wore, I think the second, when he came back, he wore 45 instead of 23, if I remember. It's the number change. But other than that, he played to the same quality as he had prior. But it's a funny thing with athletes. Some fans, some athletes fans take to regardless of how long they're around, and others you want to say, good riddance when they finally do fade away. And I guess that's just how sports are for certain individuals, certain athletes.
I just didn't want people to think that I was anti-Gordon just to be anti-Gordon. I mean, not that I'm anti-Gordon. Hell, if he was at all competitive, I wouldn't mind him being out there. And it's not even really a shot at Gordon. It's just priorities have changed. He's a family man now. He's put his time in. It is time for him to, kind of pass the torch on, and that's what was supposed to happen with Chase Elliott. Speaking of the Dolphins, and the teams, you talk about the 72 Dolphins, but talking about Dolphins in general, as a fan of the AFC East, and you being a fan of the Jets, but seeing the Dolphins as much as you had to watch them play the Jets play them, are you surprised that Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl, especially with the receivers and the team that they had and the coach they had? Are you one of those fans that were just like, wow, how did the Dolphins never go to the Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl with Dan Marino?
No, I'm very surprised at Marino because he was so good, and he was on the level. At the time, he was on the level. He didn't have as many, obviously Super Bowls, but at the time, you could almost put Dan Marino and Joe Montana on the same level, except for, and that's why people say the demarcation line is always how many, and fans say this regardless of the sport. The demarcation line always seems to be, but how many titles do they have? Be it basketball, baseball, football, whatever. And Marino, and you can't say he didn't have people around him. The receivers, my memory serves me, how many? Mark Clayton, all these good guys they had. Even, Miami down through the years. You go back to 72 Dolphins, Larry Zonka and Jim Kick in the backfield, Howard Twilley, all these guys that made, a major mark, at the time. And again, I'm misrepresenting all the receivers that Marino had. I have to go back and look at the, his years, but definitely there was never a situation where he wasn't, didn't have class people or class players around him. I mean, there was definitely, at that time, the players were there. The personnel was there. I just don't understand. And it just goes, I guess it goes, and you can't say it was a one-man show, but I think that's, at the time, I remember a lot of people saying, why doesn't Dan Marino lead them to the Super Bowl? And I just shook my head because on the one hand you say, yeah, but you can't do it one man. How many times again? All the cliches come up, CJ. One man, even a quarterback, doesn't do it himself, but he had players around him that I always remember as being good performers, but they just never. That team, those teams with Marino were puzzles to me because in individual regular season games, and maybe I'm looking at it through jet green glasses, I don't know, but whenever they played, certainly in the Marino years, whenever they played the Jets, they used to have a field day. And, the Jets, as a Jet fan, when Marino had the ball in his hands, you were genuinely scared what was going to happen, what he was capable of doing. He was like the John Elway of that era, where you don't give, at the time, you don't give John Elway of the Denver Broncos the ball on the 20-yard line even, his own 20, and not expect him to be down by the goal line in 2 minutes' time. And that was Marino in a lot of senses. And I just never understood. And I'm sure, if you go back and look, the the coaches were probably shaking their head too, like what happened, because on an individual week-to-week basis, Marino always put up numbers, but for some reason the team never clicked, and he never got to a Super Bowl win. I think he led them to, at least one Super Bowl. Was it they won? I forget the year, and who they ran into. I think he ended up leading them to one Super Bowl, but they lost that particular game. I'd have to look back and see what year it was. But he definitely retired with that tag that he never could win, or never did win the Super Bowl. And I always thought it was unfair in his case because on a game-to-game basis and a week-to-week basis, regular season-wise and even playoffs to a certain point, Marino always posted numbers. And I just don't know. I don't know why, as a fan that saw him play, he didn't have at least some success, a la, Joe Montana. Or, even to the point of, you say, Jim Kelly led the Buffalo Bills. Okay, they didn't win one. Okay, but led them to 4 Super Bowls. Now Marino led them to 1, and didn't win. But you look at Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly was good with personnel around him, but you wonder why Marino didn't lead them to more Super Bowls. I remember that was always a mystery around those seasons, those years, and again because he had the personnel around him at different times. It wasn't a matter of he was only locked on one receiver or he didn't have a running game to go with it. It wasn't like that at all. There was never any talk about that. It was just he had the personnel, he had the talent personally himself, and always put up numbers to back it up, but just never won the big one. When you talk about the Super Bowl, never. Like I said, that it's interesting you bring up Marino because that was always a mystery back then, too, in those years. Why that organization wasn't successful.
I bet you'll never guess who the first running back was on my wall. Who my first running back was, and what player I had a poster of for my very first running back. Okay.
One question. Was it a Brown?
No, it was not a Brown.
Okay, it was. I'm thinking it's based on what we're talking about. It's probably an AFC East person. Since you mentioned Miami, was it Larry Zonka?
Nope.
Marino?
Running back.
Running back.
I'll let you know he was a Jets, Jets.
Okay. So it wasn't. Okay. I'm trying to think of a running back from your era, and I'm not being a wise guy because I'm not looking at like 69, which was before your time. And 69.
I even give you another clue. He wore the number 24. Ironically enough.
Okay. Yes. What was his name? I can see him. The guy from UCLA, I believe. Okay. You got me. The name, I can see the number, and I just can't place the face. I know who you mean, though.
Freeman McNeil.
Freeman McNeil. Exactly. When you started to say Freeman, I got it. No, I had, and he came out of UCLA. I was right about the college. Yes, Freeman McNeil. Yep, definitely.
Before I knew any better, I started to go down the path of being a Jets fan. I had my mom had made me a Jets crocheted blanket. I had Jets keychains. I had the Freeman McNeil poster. I believe Ken O'Brien was a quarterback back then.
Yep.
I started. I think I even had a Jets hat. I started down the path of being a Jets fan. Then I woke up and reality sunk in, and I went to my home roots, and I became a Browns fan.
Now I have an interesting question, CJ, because the Jets weren't known as, being popular all over like the Cowboys or the Raiders. Even in high school, I can remember the Cowboys, the Raiders, and the Steelers. You always saw gear worn by kids, like high school kids in my era, okay, that were, obviously I was a high school kid too, and you always saw, if you saw out-of-town teams, you always saw the Giants and the Jets, obviously. But if you saw out-of-town teams, it was three of them. Pittsburgh, because of the Franco Harris Super Bowl Chuck Noll teams. The Raiders, because of Kenny Stabler. And what's the third one? Dallas Cowboys, of course. They've always been America's team. Those were the three that even if you lived in New York and you were a football fan and you weren't a fan of the Jets or the Giants, you always saw those three jackets on kids. I remember the jackets more than anything, or the jackets and the hats. My question to you is, how the heck were you a Jets fan living in, I assume, Ohio, correct? You grew up in Ohio?
I lived in Ohio. I have no clue how I became a Jets fan at all.
That's what I was going to ask.
My mom was a Chicago Bears fan. She had a thing for Jim McMahon. The rest of my family was Cincinnati Bengals fan. I started off being a Jets fan, have no clue. I don't know if it was just their helmets, it's just simple Jets on it. Even more simple than their helmets are today. I don't know what it was, but I was a Jets fan growing up, and I say growing up, but it wasn't but a couple years, and then I quickly became a Browns fan. But yeah, I started off. My first poster was a Freeman McNeil poster.
Very good. I'm sure if he was, if he was around today, he would autograph it for you. So, and if you had the poster today, you probably do somewhere in your attic. I don't think I have much back from those days at all, really. The only thing I have that I still have, and actually have in my possession, my mom gave it to me last year or 2 years ago. Only thing I have dating back to that far is my football clippings where I made the paper all the time since I was a running back. So it's interesting when you mentioned Ken O'Brien, because that was the quarterback then in the Freeman McNeil years, and they didn't even. You mentioned the jersey, and I'm trying to think of the year. The 69, and I'm sure you've seen this if you've seen any pictures in terms of the history with Namath and so forth. The 69 uniforms were different, and I can remember in New York they were even more popular than when the Jets went to new gear. It was the solid green and the solid white. And they used to have the 69 team, which is the more popular jersey, and now they went back to it in a retro way to what the Jets wear now. The helmets were different, and, with the Jets on the side, with the Jets written on the football, and that was the original Jets jersey. And people were buying them up because of the Super Bowl, and they became popular immediately afterwards. And when the jerseys ended up changing, they were just solid green, and the helmets were solid green with just the letter or the word Jets written on it, not even a jet on, a jet plane on the side of the helmet. It was just a green helmet with Jets written on it. And so that's what's interesting to me is the first thing I would have thought of as a youngster, say, as you were growing up, would have been if the jersey was popular or the uniform was popular. But even in New York, when they changed jerseys, the jerseys weren't as popular as the jerseys they have now, which was the original one. So it couldn't have been the jersey that attracted you. It had to be something else. I don't know. It's interesting.
And this kind of opportunity is we got an hour before our next guest, and I got one more topic in talking about Ben Simmons here in a minute. But and I know Mike's got a couple topics, but gives a chance to fans to know a little bit about me. And ironically enough, all my first original teams in pro sports that I liked, none of them were a Cleveland team. I'm not going to say I was a fan of the rest of the other teams any longer, really, than I was a Jets fan probably a season or two before I became a Cleveland fan. First Major League Baseball team I was a fan of, the Oakland Athletics. I mean, who couldn't be, though? Watching Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire and Ricky Henderson and Walt Weiss and Dennis Eckersley and Dave Stewart and Dave Parker and God, who else was out there? They just had this club, and there was just something about that. I wanted to be part of the Bash Brothers.
Right.
First basketball team, I was an Orlando Magic fan. I was a big Penny Hardaway fan, and being him and Shaq coming together, and then Dennis Scott and Horace Grant and Scott Skiles and that old team, Royal. I was a Orlando fan for 2 or 3 years before I ended up becoming a Cleveland fan. But it's just funny that none of my original teams that I was fans of, none of them were originally Cleveland fans, or none of them were originally Cleveland teams, and I quickly became diehard Cleveland everything.
Okay. I have a quick question because, especially since we have Izzo coming on, were you around, or were you following sports when the Cleveland Barons were in hockey? Or
no.
Who did you follow in hockey? Any team?
I didn't know there was a professional team in hockey, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. They weren't in existence when I lived in Ohio. The only time that I really cheered for any professional hockey team is one year I was hanging out with some people, and I would cheer for the Carolina Hurricanes since I was in Carolina at that point in time.
Right.
We would have had a team when I was in Ohio. I probably would have been more interested in hockey, and probably would have been a fan of the Blue Jackets before. I just really never had a serious interest in hockey, just because there wasn't a professional team, at least that I knew about. I don't know when the team or if they've been NHL or not, when they exist or not.
Izzo could help you with this more than me, but I do remember, and because I was an Islander fan and grew up on the East Coast where there was more, hockey was a bigger thing in New York and around the East Coast. At the time, there was a team called the Cleveland Barons who drafted, it was an expansion team, who drafted Dennis Potvin, one of my favorite players from the Islanders, and that's why I always followed him as well, to see how well he did in Cleveland. He didn't do as well in Cleveland as he did on Long Island, but in any case, they later became merged into the Minnesota North Stars, the first version of Minnesota's hockey team, pro hockey team. And like I say, Izzo would know more about that, but I remember them becoming part, dissolved into the Minnesota North Stars eventually, and they didn't you weren't the only one that didn't follow hockey in Cleveland. I guess a lot of the Cleveland Cleveland sports fans didn't either. That's why they didn't last too long, and they ended up in Minnesota. But, you'd have to ask Izzo about the ins and outs of that. But I just remember, that team existing for maybe a season or two or three. And they didn't do much in the league, which is why they, I guess, dissolved. Most of their players went to Minnesota after that. So,
and a couple of things that I just thought about. One, I never really thought about the fact that I was never originally a Cleveland fan. That I was originally a fan of something else and then became a Cleveland fan. I also cheered against the New York Giants every single Super Bowl that I can remember of. I don't remember if there was any before they went against the Denver Broncos. I can't remember. No, I take that back. That's the only year I cheered for the New York Giants. Bill Sims, Joe Morris.
Right, Joe Morris.
That was the year. That was the only year because I was still pissed off at the Denver Broncos. I have never cheered for the Denver Broncos. I can remember cheering Doug Williams and the Washington Redskins on to beat them. I never wanted the Denver Broncos ever to win. I forgot about that one because when the Giants played Buffalo, I cheered for Buffalo. And, of course, when they played the Patriots both times, I cheered for the Patriots. Speaking of Buffalo, and you brought up Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly went on record saying that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm kind of curious because I don't know if I would label him the greatest quarterback of all time. I think that he was in the perfect storm, had the perfect coach, perfect system, and had the perfect organization around him to make him look really, really good. I don't want to take anything away from, that he's a great quarterback. I don't know about the greatest all time. I think the NFL rule changes. I think the system. I think a lot of things assisted him being as good as he was. But where do you hold the Buffalo Bills? That historic run of 4 Super Bowls in a row, which nobody has done, but you lost all 4 of them. And there was I was all on the Buffalo train. And I had Buffalo Bills shirt, Andrew Reid, Tom Beebe, Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, Cornelius Bennett, Bruce Smith, Talley. I was a big Buffalo fan at that time. Pulled for them every single year, and they had one of the most talented teams that I think you could ever put together. Just couldn't get over the hump. Well, where do you, in the history book, doing what they did has never been done, and is very historic outside the fact that they didn't win. So how do you break that?
Well, growing up on Long Island, CJ, and living in New York, that's what people from out of state don't realize. Not that I didn't follow Buffalo just as an interested observer of the AFC East, but Long Island, where I grew up, is like, I'm trying to think of how far away Buffalo would be. For people in other states and the fans that we serve also, in terms of the 110 Nation, Buffalo, New York is like close to Canada, okay? So Long Island is not all that. Just because I came from New York or somebody says I'm from New York, it doesn't mean you know a heck of a lot about the Buffalo teams. However, I did follow them because I was an AFC East, fan of the Jets, and so they always played the Jets, obviously, twice a year. I think the knock on them, people were saying just what you said. Well, you went to the Super Bowl and you lost all of them, But then I remember the comeback of the commentators at that time, of that era, because they won 4. I mean, they went to 4 in a row. It wasn't just 4. I think they went to 4 in a row at one point. And the thing always was, well, how many teams want to be in Buffalo's situation, i.e., going going to the Super Bowl 4 different times. This is before the Pittsburgh Steelers did it, okay? Roughly in the same era, but I believe Buffalo was even before the Steelers doing it. And there were a couple of teams there that went to multiple Super Bowls, but Buffalo, had gone to 4 in a row, and people were saying, the people that would knock them by virtue of the fact that they lost the games would say, well, doesn't your team? I remember fans saying, fans in bars and hangouts and on talk radio saying, well, how many of your teams would you want to go there? All these fans that were knocking Buffalo because they lost. The people would turn around to them and say, hey, look, wouldn't you want now your team, whoever the team you root for, say Philadelphia or New England, well, not New England because New England was always good, but Philadelphia or, pick another team that never won off the top of my head. Any of these teams that didn't get a shot at the Super Bowl, they look and they say, okay, well, at least we went. Wouldn't you give your right arm as a fan to see your team go, let alone whether they won or lost? And that was always the comeback of Buffalo fans at the time. Buffalo followers of the Buffalo Bills of that era would say that. How many of you that are complaining would want your team to go 4 times, let alone, or twice even, let alone 4 times? And you're saying that Buffalo, you're knocking Buffalo because they didn't win it, I don't
know how I feel about that, because that's an argument I get to have in my family, because them being Cincinnati fans, Cincinnati went twice, lost to the 49ers twice, kind of lost in the same fashion. The 49ers came back late. I believe Roger Craig or somebody scored the touchdown against the Bengals in the first time, and Taylor caught the touchdown late in the game of the Super Bowl, the second Super Bowl. And they get to throw up the Browns have been in the Super Bowl, even though they won like 8 championships. It was before it was actually labeled the Super Bowl.
Right.
And so I get to have this argument, and we went to 2 Super Bowls. Well, wow, whoop-de-doo, you didn't win them. I mean, only thing that happened was all your fans got their hopes up. People had to spend extra money to watch them play, and they lost. So I understand the argument. I just don't know if that's something that I'm willing to being a Browns fan and seeing the fumble, the drive, and everything else, and being a Cleveland fan, period, up until when Cleveland, the Cavaliers finally broke the streak of 52 years, and now the Indians possibly tonight going back to, bringing another championship home. I don't know if I would have traded the heartache again. I don't know if I would have said, you know what, yes, I would rather have gone twice and lost versus never going at all, because I know what it's been like so many times being so close. I couldn't imagine what it would have been like being in the Super Bowl, and especially how the Bengals, because not only do you get your hopes up all going into the Super Bowl, you had your hopes up all the way to the last minute or 2 of the game, and then you're heartbroken. I don't know if I want to go through that. Luckily, the national title game a couple of years back, Ohio State won, so I didn't have to go through that heartache. The national title game before that, they won against Miami in like double overtime. So I've been fortunate out. The only time that I really had to recently, and it was back in '97 when the Indians, this was an interesting fact thrown out there. The last time the NFL had 2 tied football games in the same season was '97. That is the same year that the Cleveland Indians lost the World Series in Game 7. So there's a lot of people throwing those stats out there. But I just don't know if I can say without a doubt. I know a lot of fans that say, yeah, I would rather my team gone to 2 Super Bowls and not one versus never go. I just don't know if I can say that 100% without a doubt that, yes, I would rather trade in never going versus going twice and losing. I know that I'm already going to lose twice. Like, look, you're going to have 2 losses in the Super Bowl and never gone at all. I think I would probably just rather not go at all because I don't want to get my hopes up for something twice and already know that it's not going to happen. I'd just rather never have to go through all that. Because I know how I am when I watched the 7 games last year in the NBA Finals. I know what it's been like for the World Series. I know what this season, because I know what the expectations are for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know what this season is going to be like. I know that I've been, for the most part keeping up with the Cleveland Cavalier Houston game. It was 70 to 68. Cleveland was up the last time I looked. I just couldn't imagine being on the edge of my seat and know or be willing to say that I would trade 2 Super Bowl losses in for not going at all.
Well, there's like 3 things I want to just pop by you real quick, CJ. As you were talking about, was 97, jog my memory, was 97 the Marlins? I believe they lost to the Marlins, right? Okay,
that's right.
So I'm correct. The other thing that interests me in what you said in the past 10, 15 minutes was about rooting against the Giants. I can understand that, but the area you're talking about, which the teams, everybody seemed to appreciate the talent. That was a Parcells team. That was the Parcells era of Lawrence Taylor. I mean, everybody, no matter what you were a fan of, what team you were a fan of, there was no taking away the fact. Now, Lawrence Taylor, unfortunately, was one of those athletes that on the field was like indestructible, could do anything, and basically had offenses and football players scared of him. I mean, literally scared of him and what he could do athletically. And he is one of those athletes that unfortunately fell into a hole of drug abuse and problems with drugs, just generally problems with drugs and that, like a White Gooden or a Darryl Strawberry. But so that's interesting to me that most of the people from like I say, out of town that didn't follow, like I say, if you were in a certain area of the country and you followed an out of town team, it was generally Oakland, Pittsburgh, or Dallas that you were a fan of. And it was interesting to me that you rooted against the Giants so vehemently, and that's a possibility too. And then didn't follow Cleveland. I could see if you were following the team.
I mean, I cheered on Lawrence Taylor and them when they beat the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. And it's funny because whenever we played football outside, and I know every kid, imagines I'm this player, I'm that player. We played defense. Me and my brother, we were the New York Giants. He was Lawrence Taylor. I was Carl Banks. And that was our roles. And the Cleveland Cavaliers are up 113-109 with about 2 minutes left in the fourth. For those that are interested, like I said,
the last thing of the 3 things I was going to bring up when I said I had 3 quick things for you, CJ. It amazes me that Cleveland. Now, okay, the Cavaliers. Congratulations to them. They should go. I hope they do it twice in a row. But even the Indians, now, you talk about torture for Cleveland fans, okay, and I'm thinking of you. They're pushing this to like 7 games, it seems. I mean, they're when they have a chance to lock it up and have their fans, rejoice and not be so tortured, now you got to sit through. It appears that you're going to sit through 7 games of this, instead of like locking it up in 5 or 6, you're going to sit through 7 games of this. And it's, I can identify with your torture, believe me.
Well, let's just hope it goes 6 games and Cleveland wraps this up tonight. Ben Simmons, rookie, 76ers, rips into the NCAA. Ben Simmons rips into effed up NCAA one-and-done system. I don't totally agree with him on this, and I'm going to read this so you get an idea of what's going on, and I more specifically want to read what Ben said, and then I kind of want to jump into this. 76ers rookie Ben Simmons did not hold back when discussing restrictions college basketball players face in the NCAA. Simmons said that NCAA's excuse of academics was messed up for those who enroll in school 1 year before entering the NBA draft, and that players should be compensated. The NCAA is really effed up, Simmons said on a documentary, One and Done. Everybody making money except the players. We're the ones waking up early as hell to be the best teams and do everything they want us to do, then the players get nothing. They say education, but if I'm there for 1 year, I can't get much education. Throughout the documentary, which is set to air Friday, Simmons discusses how he had to hold back on temptations during his lone year at LSU, detailing how people offered him luxury cars, jewelry, watches, and houses. Obviously, if he would have accepted any, they would have violated the rules, blah, 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 blah. Coach Johnny Jones said we need to make up a punishment. Let me backtrack. Simmons said he worked to avoid interaction and agents and other deals until he was out of school. The documentary also shows how Simmons didn't care much for going to class since he planned on entering the NBA the following year. Coach Johnny Jones said, we need to make up a punishment if you miss another class. Simmons said, I missed my next class about preparing for better study habits. I'm going to the NBA next season. Why BS if it's not going to help me? Simmons also said he wanted to be a voice for student athletes to navigate what he insists is a twisted NCAA system. The NCAA is messed up, Simmons says. I don't have a voice. I don't get paid to do it. Don't say I'm an amateur and make me take pictures and sign stuff and go make hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars off one person. I'm going off on the NCAA. Just wait. I can be a voice for everybody in college. I'm here because I have to be at LSU. I can't get a degree in 2 semesters, so it's kind of pointless. I feel I'm wasting my time.
Well, first of all, CJ, it's a double-edged sword, really, because first of all, no one's telling Ben Simmons he has to jump in 1 year, okay? If he wanted a college education, he could go for 4 years, okay?
Exactly.
No one's telling him to come out. You can't have it both ways. You can't have the money the pros. You can't have the money the pros make. I'm glad I'm making all your points because
Yep.
I've heard this. I've heard this time and again when it comes to college sports, and it kills me. No one's telling these guys that they have to jump after 1 year. They all come out, and then they wonder why they fall flat on their face at times. Now, it's just like we said, I mean, to get back to, I don't want to kill the LeBron issue again, but, you could have guys come out of high school, and I won't even go with LeBron. I'll say the second athlete I could think of, and there's also a third, strangely enough, that did it, that was also with the 76ers, was Darryl Dawkins, okay? Which was probably before your time, CJ. But Darryl Dawkins was another individual that played with Julius Erving after Julius left the Nets and Long Island, went to the 76ers, and that was that crew had Darryl Dawkins and Bobby Jones and a few other people on it for those fans that were around as long as I was. But, so there are some athletes that can handle it, and there are others that can't, that don't. And, if Ben Simmons wanted a college education, why did he jump after 1 year? No one held a gun to his head. Either way.
Update real quick before I jump in, which is kind of going to be repetitive. The Chicago Cubs come out and score 3 in the top of the first, and they get ready to go to the bottom of the first. This ain't looking good already, as the Chicago Cubs are up 3-0 to the top of the first. Well, going to the bottom of the first. I agree.
I go back to the torture you're enduring, CJ. Sorry about that.
Another update with 27 seconds left. The Cleveland Cavaliers are up 125-118, so they're up 7 points. Looking good to go 4-0. I don't like the one and done. I think there's too much money invested in scouting and recruiting and getting these kids here. I think you're doing an injustice to the kids and these young adults for not making them get a degree, because there is no guarantee you're going to get drafted by the NBA. Oh, what about those ones we know? It don't matter. It's all about responsibility. It's all about bettering and making these young, these I'm going to say overage teenagers, because they're only 18, 19 years old, become adults, become young adults. And the only way to do that is for them to learn responsibility, learn that they have to get an education if they want to play sports, to get a degree just in case what happened. Everybody thought Greg Oden was a for sure thing in the NBA. I don't think he's ever even played a quarter of a season. And I'm sure that a degree, I don't know if he got a degree or not, but something that he probably needed to fall back on or something else, being how he was unable to ever put a season together. So I'm not a fan of the one and done, just like I'm not a fan of the players getting paid. But let's talk about the price of the education that these kids are getting for free to get these degrees. I don't care the fact that you might go to the NBA. You're going there, one, for the opportunity to get more spotlight, get more visibility, and to mature, your body to mature, to play with grown adults. But it's also there to get this education and get this degree to have a backup plan or even your primary plan, because not everybody that goes to college under a scholarship or an athletic scholarship plans on playing a sport. That's just how they got, how they're paying for their college. I'm not a fan of the pay of the players. You want to pay the players, I'm 100%, I will say this, I am 100% down with it. But then there's no longer any scholarships. So you pay them what a normal person gets paid. So if in that area, say Ohio State average, minimum wage or whatever is, $10 an hour, then you pay them $10 an hour. I'm fine with that. No problem at all. But therefore they need to pay for their lodging. They need to pay for their books. They need to pay for their education. You don't get paid and get a free education. It's one or the other. You can't double dip the system. Because if not, then everybody should get a free scholarship and get paid, free scholarships, and those that play have to pay. And the people that want to throw out there, well, what about the games that use their likeness? One, because of all this, you hurt the fact that there's no longer an NCAA football game in any of your Maddens or EA Sports or whatever, because they don't want to pay out these royalties. But let's do the math for a minute. You throw a game out there that maybe costs $60-$70. Well, we'll even just use Madden for instance. So let's talk about the price of a Madden game, $60-$70. You divide that by 32 53-man rosters, because everybody's got to get their piece. So now you take that $60 and now you divide it across 1,600 people. Then you got to throw all the coaches that are on the sidelines. You got to throw in the fact that all these trademarked, logos are being used. The voices like John Madden, any other sponsors, music, anything else you throw into that game that they do, now all that money has got to go and hey, look, so-and-so is the official sponsor of the jersey. Well, the likeness of their jersey is being used, so they need their little cut of it as well. So you start dividing all these cuts that everybody gets, plus EA Sports, plus Uncle Sam, plus the grocery store, or not grocery store, but the electronic store, or whatever you got it from. You throw all these, all these costs in there on top of that. I guarantee by the time you get dividing, now you're looking more probably about, 2,500, 3,000 different people that now got their hands involved because they get a piece of it. Those 10 games that you got to sell to make a few cents off is not really that big of a deal. And everybody, just like the jersey, we can break that down even more, the same way. And so when people talk about, they use their likeness this or their jersey sells that, I understand that. First of all, you also got to understand that's part of the game. That is part of what they signed up. When they signed those millions of dollars of contracts, that is what these players are getting paid. When they got a free education or a free ride to go to the Ohio State or go to Florida State or Michigan, that was part of the price they paid. Was somebody was going to make some money off of their name. They should be happy because only the players that are having their jerseys made more than likely are the ones getting drafted. There's not too many scrubs out there that Adidas or Nike or Reebok is, not like Joe Smith is, hey, what's made Joe Smith's jersey? He sits on the bench, but we're going to do that because, he plays football. No. All this does is the ones that are more than likely going and the ones that, are now, when you start talking about your popularity, getting your name out there, getting that spotlight, that's just part of how this whole process goes. So, but I'm also in for if you go that route and the players get paid, like I remind you, now they got to pay for their education. They got to pay for their food, their boarding, everything else. Nothing is allowed to be handed to them. But with that being said, I would not also have a problem if they got paid to do autographs. Now, if you're now, that's a legitimate job. You sit there, it's no different than, your CEO sitting at his desk and signing, contract and documentation after documentation. That's what they get paid to do. And to me, that's no different. So if Joe Smith, is that great of a player and is now getting paid $10 an hour or whatever to go play sports, got to take care of himself, I have no problem if, Big Pop Joseph from the Ford dealership says, you know what, I'll pay you $500. You come down and sit in my dealership for 3 hours and sign autographs all day long. Now, I wouldn't have a problem with that as well. I'm all about making it even, but it's the athletes and it's those fans that are for these athletes that are not really down for it being equal. They are more pushing for it to all the benefits going to the players and not to everybody else that's got their hands in it. There's a reason why all these other people have it. There's a reason why the college has their hands in it, because they got to pay for the upgrades. They got to pay for the equipment and everything else. There's a reason why people's hands are in it that are in it. And the players, it was under the understanding that you got a free education. Like I said, I don't care either way, but it has to be one way or the other. You can't double dip.
Yeah, I have one thing to add with that. I know we agree on a lot of this, but as because as I brought it up, you were going yes. But also, I think there is one hypocrisy in the whole thing, which was the one thing I don't agree with is, like, if these kids get a pizza, they can't spend on a pizza. Now, as a college student, I know we all were there, had money available to us to be able to buy a pizza or something of that nature. There's a big difference to me between signing with an agent, say, and being able to purchase a pizza pie, okay? And that's where I think the NCAA rules get crazy. Like you won't give, like, kids meal money or something. That's ridiculous, okay? Like I say, there's a difference between say, purchasing a pizza and signing with an agent. There's got to be, some sanity to the rule. Like we say about all rules, CJ, and whether it's NASCAR and different things. But this was one, it just didn't sit well with me either.
See, this is where we're going to differ a little bit as well, because you're talking about basically the fact that athletes are unable to feed themselves, correct?
Well, the NCAA does seem to nitpick what they can purchase, what they can't purchase, what they can get. I remember something rather serious, like I forget the name of the athlete, and there's probably been more than one, where he had a family member die, and apparently got money to get an airline ticket to go home or something, and got penalized. And I forget the name of the athlete, but it's like situations like that don't sit well with me, where every college student would be able to do it, and they can't without being penalized. That to me seems unfair.
Gotcha. What other topics did you have? I know you had a handful of things that you want to jump in. Looks like the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to go ahead and win their game tonight, and I'm going to sit here and twiddle my thumbs and hope that the Cleveland Indians can come back from this 3-point deficit and that they're already down. LeBron James almost pulled another triple-double. Kyrie Irving, 32 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. Kevin Love, 24 points, 5 boards, 2 assists. LeBron James, 19 points, 13 rebounds, 8 assists, and a 128-120 win over the Houston Rockets as the Cleveland Cavaliers continue their run. And as much as I would like to see the Cleveland Cavaliers keep winning, honestly, at some point here soon, I really wish they would just go ahead and take the loss. Because I don't want to start finding myself getting sucked into, okay, can the Cleveland Cavaliers now beat the 73-9 record, and that even be a distraction or a conversation. What's topics?
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, what topics did you have that you wanted us to jump in? Well, we got about 30 more minutes.
Okay, just real quick, I had 3 articles that stuck out to me. Again, we're trying to vary our sports here, so I try to pick out articles that would be of different sports that would be of interest to the fans, and we could talk about them. One was the Oklahoma City Thunder signing 2 of their players before the trade deadline. So obviously they're locking up everybody after the loss of Durant. They're locking up everybody early this year, including Russell Westbrook, to play with Russell Westbrook. There were 2 guards involved. One was I can never say this guy's name. It's another name, CJ. Ali Oppo or something from that came from the Orlando Magic, and another Steven Adams, another guard. So those 2 contracts apparently were up, and the Thunder signed them before the trade deadline. Also, the college football rankings, believe it or not, the preseason rankings came out with basically no surprise. You're going to get, and again, you know this being in North Carolina, CJ, you're either going to get, as far as college basketball in the beginning of the year, you're either going to get Duke or North Carolina in the number 1 slot. Surprise, surprise, Duke again is picked for number 1, and they have like 25. Put it on your timeline. They have the top 25 for the preseason. And the third thing was specifically for you and all the Browns fans out there. Believe it or not, Peter King thinks that possibly in the next year or 2 the Browns can win the Super Bowl. So Kind of surprising, but I put all those, on the 110 pages in addition to your timeline for you to enjoy there, CJ. So
I'm assuming that Peter King doesn't take a drug test.
My thought exactly, but apparently he knows something.
I don't even know if I would go as far as believing that the Cleveland Browns will have a winning season in the next couple of years.
I'm sure, knowing, as we've talked about the history of the Browns of late, I'm sure you would take, breaking 500 for God's sake, But yeah, that article was interesting to me just to see what he would say, But so those are basically the three things that came up new and diverse as far as the different sports we try to touch on in addition to the racing, CJ. But I don't know, I don't know how off season you follow and how completely you follow college basketball, but I mean for until after at least Christmas, I guess. That's when, to me, that when the tournament starts, like I remember even college basketball when you talked about like Dick Vitale and ESPN. ESPN always kicks off the year with the two big tournaments are the ones in Hawaii. I think it's the Maui Classic, and then there's the Alaska Shootout, which heaven knows who would want. Maybe it's because I don't like the cold, even though I grew up in the East. But who would want to go to Alaska to play basketball? But that's my personal thing. But anyway, I would much rather go to Hawaii and play basketball. But anyway, those two tournaments are held, I guess, over the Christmas holidays, and I guess college football season, for God's sake. I can't get into college basketball till at least those tournaments come on. But here again, ESPN decides to publish the preseason college basketball rankings today, as a matter of fact, is when I posted them. So, but again, no surprise. You don't have to know the personnel. I mean, it's Duke and Duke number one, and whoever else goes from there. I think there's Kansas. It's all the known teams that have made the tournament. Made at least one Final Four. Villanova is supposed to be strong again. There's no big surprises in terms of the top 25, or at least the top 3 or 4. Anyway.
Can't believe that he said that he believes the Cleveland Browns Super Bowl.
Super Bowl 52, I think it would be. I forget the number, but he said by Super Bowl 50 some odd, the Browns will possibly have won the Super Bowl. That particular Super Bowl.
Before we have our first guest here in about 15 minutes, we got Rette. First of all, we got Rette Jones from Rette Jones Racing joining us at 9 o'clock, as he does every Tuesday night during the chase. So we got him just for a couple more weeks, where we're going to find out if there's any more news coming out of Rette Jones Racing, as Dominique's going to be getting an opportunity to be in the truck at Phoenix. Very excited about her getting that opportunity. And we're going to cover Martinsville and upcoming week, which, Mike, where are they going to be at next weekend?
I believe it's Texas next.
And then
I believe it goes Texas, Phoenix, and then Homestead. I don't know. Are you and Shorty going to be able to make Homestead? Or what's the deal with that,
I'm not, at this point, not sure. It's not looking good. We have been approved to go to Homestead, Shorty and myself. But finances, we got 3 paychecks between now and then. Well, let me rephrase that. I got 3 paychecks between now and then. So we'll see. Things got real dark, real ugly, real quick, and we got in a hole that I am strategically trying to dig us out of at this point. And so I don't know if Homestead is going to be a possibility. I hope it is. We have really enjoyed ourselves last year. But we'll have Mark talk about Martinsville, some things that we're talk about on the chase, and get us prepared for Texas. Then we got Izzo joining us at 9:30 to talk the NHL, as he does every Tuesday night, 9:30. So looking forward to that. Don't forget, tomorrow we got Shannon back in the studio. I'm sure we'll probably have Shorty in the studio as well, have all 4 of us giving our picks. What the hell is going on with Minnesota? How do you lose to the Chicago Bears? We'll talk a bit about that in a second. And Jake Coulter actually had a pick. But we got Shannon joining us, Shorty joining us. We got Anna Newhouse will be in the studio at 8 as well. So looking forward to having her on the show. She's been on the show many, many times. A big ball of energy, fun to talk to. Looking forward to having her on the show tomorrow night. Got to make sure that I thank Fit for Life. You guys can check them out on Facebook, Fit for Life. You also can go to our site, www.the110nationsports.com. On the right-hand side, I got a banner. Click on it, find out if there's a location near you. 24/7, 365. Get your gym on. Clean gym, courtesy staff. Got everything you need. Make sure you guys check them out. That is Fit for Life. Also got to thank Snafu Seasoning. You guys can the official sponsor of Racing with Big Sweat, Thursday night, 9 p.m. All you got to do is call in and be part of the show. Talk to the guests, talk to the host. He'll hook you up with a free bottle of Snafu Seasoning, 100% all-natural, no preservative, meat rub. Great for grilling. Grills great on a lot of things. That's Snafu Seasoning. Also got to thank I-95 Sports Network and Mile High Radio for broadcasting, rebroadcasting, or syndicating their shows. Without all these great people, this all would not be possible. They continue growth. They continue doing what we do, going to a 3-hour show. All this is possible because of these people. If you guys are out there and maybe you got a network and you would like to have our show come on to help fill some spots for you, or maybe you're out there and you are marketing out in the market looking for a marketing partner, we got plans for everybody. All you got to do is hit me up, MrCJSports@gmail.com. I love having an opportunity to see about making you a marketing partner here at the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network. As we got the 110 Nation Sports Show every Monday through Wednesday, 7 to 10 p.m. We got Racing with Big Sweat Thursday night, kicks off at 9 o'clock, goes until 10:30, depending on the guest and how many. Friday night, 8 to 10, Hot Laps with Stats with Mike Perricone, and who's in the studio with me. Saturdays at noon, we have Happy Hour Garage, and Monday night at 6 o'clock, before we get things kicked off here at the 110 Nation Sports Show, we got Rubbin' Racing that we broadcast live over on the Spreaker platform at 6, and we rebroadcast it on our network at 10 o'clock following this show on Monday night. Also, you guys can catch us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, Blog Talk Radio. Go over to our site, www.the110nationsports.com. We have a player over there that plays like the last 7 shows. Multiple ways to be able to catch the show and keep up with the 110 Nation. You guys can check us out on Facebook, 110 Nation Sports. Check out my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports. Also on Twitter, 110 Nation, and my personal fan page, or my personal account at CJ Sports 1. You can also keep up with Mike at Stats 108. Also check out his fan page, Hot Laps with Stats. Minnesota. What all of a sudden is going on? You lost to the Chicago Bears, a Jay Cutler-led Chicago Bears on top of that.
Yes, And I think the strange thing, aside from Minnesota losing, the strange thing is that Jay Cutler actually played well from everything I heard and saw. So, I mean, maybe that's his one game a year that he shines in. I don't know. I have not watched Jay Cutler too often where he has shined. He has looked more like, I'll use my team as an example. Jay Cutler looks more like Ryan Fitzpatrick more often than he looks like Tom Brady. Okay? And that's the bottom line. And last night he apparently played like Tom Brady. So, and then something else that I didn't realize, CJ, is that Adrian Peterson, I don't know if he's not playing or if he's just not there or if he's injured or what, but they have virtually no running game this year. I mean, Peterson was doing like 90% of the carries, and I don't know what their problem is. I don't know if he's out of the lineup. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't follow Minnesota to that degree, but I basically picked Minnesota as I think we all did. If we picked Minnesota because we couldn't, in good conscience, pick the Bears, and that Jay Cutler chooses to play one good game a year, and it's last night. So that's the reason. It wasn't pro Minnesota as much as it was anti Jay Cutler that I made the pick. But additionally, apparently Minnesota has no running game this year at all, which hurt them.
Yeah, nobody picked the Chicago Bears to win. I think it kind of took everybody by surprise this week, at least in our studio. I didn't even really give much thought to even think about having to watch the game. Honestly, I thought it was going to be a pretty lopsided game. I just didn't think.
I actually just followed highlights. Yeah, I didn't even put the game on, to be honest. But even after I got off the show, I was basically following highlights. So yeah, it wasn't a game I was riveted to my screen or whatever. But again, that goes back to the team choices, I suppose. Although Minnesota was surprising on the positive side because, especially since Sam Bradford, I didn't expect them to play as well on the season as they have. And the only thing I can equate it to is surprise, surprise. Sam Bradford was actually not a cover subject, but an inside story in SI this week. And or within the last 2 weeks anyway. And so, needless to say, and I'm not afraid to say it. I said when he was picked up by Minnesota that he wasn't going to do much, and I guess the last 2 weeks he hasn't. But the first, 4 or 5 weeks, CJ, he was playing like world beaters. But yeah, and then the last 2 weeks or so, last 2 games, he is. I don't want to say degenerate, but fell back into playing like Sam Bradford. I mean, these last 2 weeks are the Sam Bradford I expected to see all season, and when, like I say, when you end up being the source or the profile of a story in SI, you're doing something right because a lot of times you have to be really above and beyond to have a story written on you. And then, in fact, that's the second Minnesota Viking to be written about in SI this year. The other one was Harrison Smith, the safety. So, and he didn't play well last night either. So I think it was a bad night for Minnesota all around. You know, it would have to be to lose to Jay Cutler and the Bears. That's how you look at it, I guess.
Probably the only way you can look at it.
True. But, yeah. That's interesting thing last week. How many of us picked against each other? How many games were like that? I know with the Saints game I went around against the grain. I think you and Shorty picked the other team, but I'm wondering how many games were like that this week.
That I can tell you this week there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games that we all picked the same.
Okay, 6. And it was like 13. Yeah, 13. Yeah. So 6 and then 7 we picked differently, but you can't count the tie in because we all lost on the tie. So there you go. It's basically 6 games we picked differently.
And it was probably a good 3 or 4 games that only one person picked that one person picked. So
right, and the other two went together. Yeah.
Oh goodness, I'm still kind of tripping, and I want to make sure that I thank everybody that is catching the show, thanks to being friends with us or liking us on Facebook. It's really to me, an incredible story. And I guess because being the host of this show and the founder and the CEO of this company, knowing that we were stuck at like 850 likes for like 6 months. And I want to say it was September. It must have been when we did the contest. Might have been August. It seemed like September. We ran a contest to see if we could hit 1,000 likes. And within like within like a week, I think we went from 850 to 1,000. And like I think we ended up doing like 200 likes in that 2-week period or however long it was, going from 850 to 1,050. And here we are creeping up on 1,160. And I think it's more of that impresses me. I think the thing that impresses me or catches my attention is while I was sitting there talking to another person like this. And it just seems like every day when I go on there, we have gained a new fan here at the 110 Nation, which is just remarkable because, we knew it was coming. We've been slowly growing over the 5.5 years. But with social media, you just saw that plateau for the longest time, and it just seemed like it would never. As a matter of fact, we ended up losing a couple likes at some point, and we actually went backwards a little bit before we ran that contest. I think we were up to like 860 or 865, and that's when we trickled back down to like 850 or so, and or maybe not that big of a difference. We lost somewhere between like 5 and 10 fans, and to go from a 6-7 month stretch where we didn't gain a single like to where this last couple months it's almost a daily routine to bring in a new 110 fan. It's just really cool to watch. And so I know that over the last 2 months we've grown on our Facebook 300-400 alone. I know that that has been part of the reason why our numbers on the platforms we can actually keep stats on. We don't have accessibility to all the platforms. But the platforms we can, the increase in fans and the increase in listeners, and we know that's got a great part to do with our Twitter and our Facebook. And so I just want to thank all the new members of the 110 Nation, all those that are fans and have liked us, and definitely want to thank all those that have tuned in, especially because of us posting over on our fan page, because it's like I said, it's just really cool to kind of be able to see this on a daily basis. More so, not that we weren't, like I said, it's not that we weren't growing before, but you didn't get to see it almost every day. And to have a 6-month stretch or so that you just kind of hung out, and then it all changed, and you just kind of see the crowd getting bigger and bigger now on a consistently everyday basis. It's just really cool to watch. I don't know. It's just me. But anyway, we got
I want just real quick, CJ, and, you know, in the sense of giving credit where it's due, based on my show, and not to pat myself on the back, this is not what this is. What I'm going to say to you is, obviously at the beginning of my show, I put it out there that we were going to do this, that I had my own show. And there are a couple of people from Riverhead, Raceway, and the Northeast, where my contacts come from, that I'd like to acknowledge. One being, and we've had him on the show, Jeremy McDermott and his wife, who always get back to me and say they listen to the show, and not only mine, but then I turn around and say, well, you should listen all week long, if possible. And then Paulie Demansky, who's been on the show, always listens with his significant other. So every week when I do the thank yous and so forth, and the Twitter, there's always somebody that comes and says, "Oh, I listened," and especially with certain shows when we had Eddie on, and everybody from Riverhead was listening. That's like. Not to say everybody who was in the pits was listening, but that's 250 people, on average. So if everybody from the divisions listen, and then, basically, hopefully by word of mouth, I'm not saying that I do it, totally, but, to put it out there and then, to give, again, you and I have spoken about this privately, to give credit where credit is due. And you mentioned the contest. Well, right before the contest, or either right before or right after, Shannon coming on must have a heck of a lot of friends, because that's when we really jumped. And, but it's nice to see, as you say, and word of mouth seems to be getting out there now.
Most definitely. And, yeah, we had that contest and a big jump. And honestly, after that, I kind of expected it to plateau out, and we go days, if not weeks, without. But it's consistently almost every day that we gain a new like and a new follower, and it's just really cool to see. It kind of growing on its own without having to do another contest yet. Is that something we're going to probably kick off at the beginning of the year? Brainstorm. We got a few things that we're wanting to get rid of, and we'll look into that. We got our first guest in the studio. We got 2 people joining us tonight. We got Mark Rette of Rette Jones Racing in the studio now. We're getting ready to throw him in there. And then at 9:30, we got Izzo, our NHL expert, joining us to get things caught up for the NHL. But first things first, we got Mark in the studio. Let's go ahead and pop him in there. Mark, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad. How you guys doing?
Hey, Mark.
Not too bad. As always, got to get things kicked off the proper way. I'm going to let you plug you guys, social media, team site, sponsors, anything you want to throw out there, Mark, before we jump into this.
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, as I say every time, sponsor-wise, going in Durabite, which is Dominique's father's company. Russo's tinning, and as far as they take care of all of our windshield tear-offs and everything for us, Goodrich hoses and fittings takes care of all of our oil lines and all that stuff, and JRI Shocks is a big supporter of ours now, so just want to thank them, and looking to make their the next year another year for them moving forward, and obviously our Twitter, our Facebook, Rette Jones 30. Just trying to get out there and get as much social media as we can get going, and I still yet to launch that website, but we're getting close.
I know last week you laid it on us that Dominique's going to be driving the truck at Phoenix. Was there any other updates before we jump into talking racing coming out of the RGR?
Yeah, Dominique's. We're gonna get ready. We're getting ready right now to make the trek to Phoenix to be her first truck start. Little bit of news that happened today is we're actually gonna team up with Tyler Young Motorsports, which is the O2 truck and the Craftsman truck, or the Camp and World Truck Series. Tyler, we're going to do kind of a joint effort. Obviously, it's my truck, my people, my stuff. Tyler and I put some stuff together points-wise to where she's guaranteed into the race by running his number. So it'll be a joint effort between Young Motorsports and RJR, but it will be all our stuff and all our equipment, people, so on and so forth. So I guess they say it never rains in the desert, but I want to be positive that we're in the show. So I have seen it rain in the desert. So we decided to do that today. We'll actually, instead of running the traditional number 30, which is the number I own in the Truck Series and in the K&N Series and in the ARCA Series, we'll run the O2 number, which is Tyler's number, and that gets him his points and all that. So a little bit of a joint effort going on, but doing it for all the right reasons. What are you guys doing to keep yourself busy? As you guys still got another week before you guys go to Phoenix. And you guys have had the previous week off or so. What is what we're looking for? Are you guys starting to get anxious or I guess restless for everything you guys have been going on? Then you guys kind of get this little break. What do you guys do on a day-to-day basis to kind of keep your guys' mind on getting to Phoenix, getting things prepared for Phoenix, but also just trying to keep your mind, moving and keeping your bodies moving? There's been a lot going on behind the scenes. We've actually been doing some testing for the K&N Series for next year, a little bit of driver stuff. I was hoping to go ahead and announce that driver tonight, but we've got everything done. Contracts are being drawn up. Everything's being done. So until I get that contract done and contract signed, I'm going to hold off on the name of that driver. But I'm here to tell you that Rette Jones Racing, as far as the K&N entry, we will be 2 cars next year, 2 cars strong. So that's a little bit of the news that I've been working on. So we did some testing last week. I'm sorry, with that undisclosed driver, and really, really excited about some things that we got going on here, and obviously getting ready for Phoenix. I mean, Phoenix is going to be a big race for Dominique. I want to make sure that the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, because it is such an important race, and that being her first truck race. But it's been plenty busy around here. Getting ready for that much. Getting a test in, getting some stuff, moving for next year, and obviously expanding to the second car. We're going to be very, very busy getting toolboxes and haulers and everything ready to put the second team in motion. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. It's just not that you just flip the switch and say, okay, we're going to run 2 teams strong here. There's chassis that have to be built, bodies that have to be hung, parts that have to be either made or purchased, depending on what they are. So, and people to be hired. There's a lot going on there. So, definitely got a lot going on there. Going to close Phoenix out. Go and hopefully have a good run at Phoenix and close it out for the year as far as racing goes. But then we turn around a couple weeks later. We got the PRI show. We got a lot going on. So building for a lot, trying to make it a cozy off season, I guess, to say, where we're not having to work 7 days a week. So like I said, we're trying to ramp up on that kind of stuff and trying to get as much done as we can while we have the time.
How much of a difference is it to set up? You guys have the super speedway truck already, but you're talking, you guys are preparing the Phoenix truck. How big of a difference is the setup from the super speedway truck that you guys already had versus the one you got to set up for Phoenix? And are they not interchangeable? You guys not able to use the same truck? Does it have to be a whole different truck for Phoenix versus the super speedway?
Yes. So your Phoenix truck is, traditionally a Martinsville loud and short track truck. Obviously, when you go truck racing, really you end up, your speedway truck, your Daytona Talladega truck it's one in its own. I mean, that's a truck that's specifically built for Daytona Talladega. And then you have your intermediate trucks, which are your mile and a half trucks, your Texas, like this weekend, Kentucky, Kansas, Chicago, Charlotte, that's traditionally your mile and a half truck. And then you have your short track truck, your Martinsville, Phoenix, Bristol, Gateway, and they're all a little bit different. You can run a mile and a half truck on a short track, but you typically build your short track truck. Obviously, it's light, and you want to build them all light. But your short track truck is your major truck that you work on, try and get all your weight out of, get all your CG down low. So there is differences. There's differences in the bodies. As much, you watch some of these trucks on TV, and they seem to be crab walking down the straightaway where the right rear is, closer to the wall, put as much side force, as much down force in the truck as you can, to where you almost want to do the opposite, going speedway racing, because you're trying to hide the spoiler for speed. So those bodies are a little bit different, the measurements, and the way you go about hanging those bodies are a little bit different. So, it is tentatively pretty different. Obviously setups are different, for sure. So the big difference, like I said, is a lot of aero stuff and stuff like that.
Mike, you got any questions on RJR before we jump into NASCAR?
Sure, I have the one specifically that actually bleeds into both. I could have done this both ways, Mark. We had been talking, CJ and I, for I guess about 2 days now about the possibility, and I just posted 2 articles that basically said Rick Hendrick being one and Junior being the other, saying that they both believe that Jeff Gordon will come back in a substitute role. And I mentioned to CJ earlier on that I would like to ask you this question. What's your feeling on someone like Jeff Gordon being recycled? That, to me, puts a damper, not a damper, but, it gives the people you develop one less chance to move up in a situation like that if they keep these retired quote-unquote guys and putting them in seats. It kind of cuts down opportunities for your people. What's your feeling on it?
I'll be honest with you. Just like Rick Hendrick stated in a lot of this media stuff, that guy's just too good to be retired. And I agree with him. Jeff Gordon's, he's an idol of mine. I grew up watching him. He old boy wonder, he was the guy, So Jeff Gordon is good. He's a heck of a race car driver, and he's, obviously certain circumstances happened, and he decided that he was going to retire, and now he's come back in a helping role to help a driver that's obviously out of the seat, not able to compete right now. So I look at it both ways. Obviously you're always trying to develop and get that younger kid or that younger driver out there, and that's what it's all about. It's about building for the future. And there's days for the Jeff Gordons, the Greg Biffles, some of these drivers have been around for a while that they start, Tony Stewart, start looking at the retirement side of things. At the end of the day, I understand where they're at because, it is a grueling schedule, but a lot of people don't realize that while you may be at the racetrack for 3 or 4 days, these drivers are every week they're doing media obligations. They're flying to this racetrack. We might be going to Phoenix next week. So, this week some of these drivers might have been flying out to Phoenix and doing some media stuff to put the race out there that, hey, we're coming to town, and they do stuff like that every week. So their work week's a whole lot longer than what most people see, I guess to say. And it's grueling. It's a lot of time away. It's why these guys have their own airplanes. It's just to try and make it as convenient as possible. So I can see where Jeff got worn out. He got tired, and he might have retired and plugged the batteries in for a little bit, and then this might have been something that he says, I'm having a good time filling in, being a fill-in driver. So, I mean, I'm okay with it because, he is Jeff Gordon, and he has everything that he's done has been pretty cool, so, and he still has it, you know what I mean? He gets in the car every week, and look how he was running at Martinsville. I mean, he looked like he never missed a beat, right? So, there's a time and a place for all that, and then obviously the fill-in role where he's at right now is suited for him and what he's got going on. So I have no problem with it by any means. But we do like to see the younger guy get a break,
Good. Okay. Nice.
I don't think this came out when we had you on last week, and I know you're all about the Sprint Cup guys being out there on Fridays and Saturdays and the Camping World Truck and the Xfinity Series, because you want your drivers to compete against the best. But NASCAR did limit the drivers to 10 races, which I think that ruling's a little vague because if I'm reading it right, it basically says that Brett Keselowski can take the first 10 races, Logano can take the next 10 races, and they can have another Penske driver race up until the race before the chase, and you still have pretty much a Penske Sprint Cup driver competing in almost all the races. But they're limited to 10 races, not the race before the chase, and not the chase itself. With you being somebody with your having strong feelings towards, you want your guys out there competing against the best, and these guys coming through the ranks running against the best. Do you feel that NASCAR made a bad decision on this, or looking at it, maybe that was a good decision in NASCAR, especially with the chase?
I think I kind of like it. I like it as far as they're going to race no matter what. They're going to figure out how to put these Cup guys in the races to some extent. It sells more hot dogs, right? It sells more tickets. So at the end of the day, I'm okay with it because I look at it from the standpoint that, like you said, Brad can run the first 10, Joey can run the second 10. Okay, now we're getting ready for the chase, and that might be an audition for a younger guy. That might be, that might be the shot that this younger guy needs, and he goes and does good and proves himself. Well, maybe now that guy's looking at a full-time ride for the following year in a second Penske car, I guess I would say, and. So it all works out. It's all. I like it. I like it on the fact that it is limited to an extent, but at the same time, that you still get to race and still get to play around on a Saturday afternoon.
I've seen this topic come out earlier in the week, and Mike and myself talked about it a little bit. The lack of excitement. I have enjoyed the chase. But some have, thrown out there the lack of excitement, and I can see it. The last couple of years of the chase, we watched Martinsville last year. We watched Matt Kenseth take out Joey Logano. We've seen Logano disrupt the air and whatnot in Kansas earlier in the chase and cause him to be knocked out. We watched the year before. We watched them fight in between the haulers. We watched Kevin Harvick come up behind Keselowski and push him. With the last 2 years, I don't know if we got spoiled and got to watch all this post-race stuff and all these, these different rivalries build up and go through the chase, and we got to see all this, or we're just expecting more. I'm not quite sure, but it seems this year we have not had the same kind of excitement or build-up. We kind of, it was almost kind of manufactured that Ryan Newman and Tony Stewart scuffle right before the chase, and it was like NASCAR didn't get the reaction, or those two drivers didn't get the reaction. I don't know if they were kind of expecting, it's Tony Stewart and his former driver and friend. Look at them, they're mad at each other, and it was expecting this to be some build-up, and it just didn't, and they just kind of killed it. I don't know, but is the chase this year lacking the what we've seen the last 2 years, or is we just some of the fans just missing the bigger picture?
Well, it is lacking a little bit, but I probably wouldn't blink my eyes too much because you never know what can happen this weekend. It's getting down to the nitty-gritty. It's getting down to crunch time. So obviously, just like anything else, it's nerves are going to get amped up a little bit. Everything is going to be, everyone's going to be walking on eggshells in the next coming races. So I would definitely stay tuned to see what happens. Maybe last year started a little bit sooner, but we'll just have to see what happens here and moving forward. Like I said, I probably wouldn't blink my eyes too much because going into this weekend at Texas, there's a lot on the line. And like I said, we're getting closer to crunch time here. We're getting closer to Homestead and championship time. So nerves are going to be a little bit shorter. You might let this guy go throughout the course of the race, and everything's going to happen a little bit faster. Every spot's going to be worth that much more. So while, yes, I do believe it is a little bit more low-key, I guess, to say, than last year, I still think that there's some big stuff to happen here. So I would definitely tune in and definitely keep my eyes open and waiting for that to happen.
I'm curious to how things are going to be handled over at Joe Gibbs Racing, because now we're guaranteed already that one Joe Gibbs race driver is not going to make it. With Jimmy Johnson winning the race, now there cannot be a sweep and be all Joe Gibbs Racing. So that's one of the things that to me is going to be interesting the next week here, because now the gloves got to start coming off. Now it's not so much Joe Gibbs Racing. Now it's what can Denny Hamlin do for Denny Hamlin, or Matt Kenseth do for Matt Kenseth, versus all these restarts we watched at Martinsville. Hey, you pick the bottom line. We'll let you go in front of us. Everybody playing nice right now. But I am very curious how much longer does everybody play nice over there at Joe Gibbs Racing before the gloves start coming off and that they start getting focused on being part of that championship run at Homestead. Jimmy Johnson, second win of the chase, obviously won a race as well to get into the chase. So I know he's got at least 3 wins. To me, it's still not getting the attention and, I don't know, maybe even respect that he's deserving for this year. What else does Jimmy Johnson, outside of obviously going to Homestead and win, what does he need to show the fans in the next 2 weeks to become a serious, I don't know, a legitimate, I'm not going to say legitimate, because I feel that you're 6-time Jimmy Johnson, like you're a legitimate shot. I guess what does he got to prove or show us between now and then to kind of be an odds in favor versus right now? I still think it's Kevin Harvick, maybe Keselowski or Logano, one of them, and a couple Joe Gibbs Racing, Joe Gibbs cars. I don't think anybody's still really taking Jimmy Johnson, and I know it's a lot of it got to do with the inconsistency of Hendrick Motorsports this year. But what does Jimmy Johnson got to show us to become one of the odds in favor going into Homestead? Because right now, I still don't hear a lot of talk from people feeling confident in Jimmy Johnson winning this fall.
Yeah, I don't. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he has to show us anything. I think he already has. He's the wily old veteran that's been around a long time, and you let Jimmy Johnson sniff the front of the pack, you're in trouble. Time in, time out, if he doesn't have that winning car, you might see him just kind of get the day over with, get the job done. But when he sniffs that front, and he's got a car capable of winning, watch out, because he goes and he just takes that car, makes it that much better. I really think that I had to root for somebody else here a couple weeks ago when I lost my main man Truex. So I kind of shifted my thought process and I kind of started to go with Jimmy Johnson because, I'd love to see him win that one, and tie those guys or, get to where those guys are. I just, he deserves it, and he's the guy, and, he's done it all. He's, he takes that car and he's really just been quiet, and slowly just creeping in there and getting the job done. So I think he's a favorite. I think he's the guy to beat right now. And, it always seems to be that him and Chad step up when it's time to step up. So, I just, at the end of the day, experience, being there, doing it, he knows how to, he's been part of this for so many years, and he's been part of the championship chase for a while now. So, I think he's comfortable going and doing it. He's not, the nerves aren't getting to him, and he's not getting amped up. He's just going and racing. And like I said, he's been in that situation so many times. It's kind of easy for him, so it makes it a whole lot easier for him, compared to the next guy. So I don't think he has to prove anything. I think he's proved everything he needs to, and I would definitely, like I said, I definitely think he's a force to be reckoned with. I think he's the guy to beat right now. So. See how the next couple weeks go, but I really feel strong that when you get to Homestead now, that's kind of the guy I'm going with. It's kind of the guy I'm picking.
Is the perfect storm brewing up for Kevin Harvick? We know that Kevin Harvick kind of shows us his best stuff when his back is in the corner. He's outside of the top four right now, and we got Texas and we got Phoenix, and we know it just like Charlotte used to be Jimmy's house. We kind of look at Phoenix being Kevin Harvick's house. Is this the perfect storm brewing up for that number 14?
I mean, yeah, obviously, it's you're 100% right. Jimmy's, Charlotte used to be Jimmy's house, and you rarely, Jimmy's the guy to beat when you go there, And 100%, when Kevin Harvick goes to Phoenix, he's hitting on all eight. He's the guy to beat. I mean, he, for whatever reason, he just, he just takes to Phoenix, and that's his house. So I think, obviously, and Texas is a good racetrack for him too. But I think I look forward to probably, if I had the grand all prediction, I would say that the 48 would be really tough this weekend going to Texas. Which is a racetrack very similar to Charlotte. I look when they go to Phoenix, it's Kevin's race to lose, just because he is just, at the end of the day, he's just so darn good there. I think that's probably something Kevin already has circled on his calendar, is that Phoenix race, because, it's just, like I said, it's a place that he gets around really good, and he just, for whatever reason, adapts to very well. So I think he's got that back in his bag of tricks, and hopefully, hopefully it works out the way he wants it. But I think, like I said, and he can go win Texas this weekend. They've got a great program over there, and it's hit or miss. It's probably not as consistent as they would like it to be, but Kevin's, love him or hate him, Kevin's a great race car driver, and they've got a great team over there. So sky is the limit.
I think there are two things, CJ, about what Mark was saying and about the two drivers we just discussed. One being Jimmy Johnson. I've said it all year. I think the problem with the fans is that he doesn't seem as dominant this year as he has in the past. His name being mentioned in the quote-unquote regular season, but like Mark said, and I thought about this too, is when it came time for, it was like either elimination or go on, that's when, he's come to the fore. And the same thing kind of with Kevin Harvick. I don't remember what round it was, but it was like, okay, you face elimination or you move on, and he ended up winning that race. And he almost has to, of the 3 races, he almost has to wait until the third one or the second one prior to being eliminated, and then he ends up winning. And they both do it the same, in a little bit different style, but the same way.
One final question, one food for thought from you, Mark. We got Harvick and Kurt Busch 6th, 7th. We got Carl Edwards 8th. That means 3 out of the top 5 going into Texas are Joe Gibbs racing cars. If you was to take a wild guess, when we get to Homestead, how many Joe Gibbs racing cars do you think we'll actually see in the Final Four?
I don't know. I think I'm not so sure about what Carl's got going on there. They haven't been as strong as I thought they would have been. So I'm going to say I'm going to have to go with 2 of them.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thought process behind it all, and I think Carl's going to be the odd man out.
I can agree. I can see 2, and Edwards not being one of them. I don't think Hamlin would be one either. If I was to take a guess, I think the 2 dominant drivers over there right now are Kansas and Busch, and the 2 that are kind of subpar. And I hate to say it, all 4 of them are great drivers, but I just think that Kansas and Busch are the class of that team. Definitely look forward to seeing what's going on over there at Red Jones Racing come next Tuesday night. And as you guys are getting ready for Phoenix, and looking forward for see how the truck's going, how Dominique's prepared, and everything else. I'm looking forward to recapping Texas and getting ready for Phoenix. You guys, good luck this week in getting everything prepared and start getting the final touches on everything. And looking forward to having you back here next Tuesday night.
All right, guys, I appreciate it. And like I said, Texas is going good. I think we're going to be in really good shape, and I'm really excited to get out there, get on the racetrack, let her get on this radial tire, and see what she's got. So everyone remembers, they always remember your first race out, whether it be good or bad. So we got to do the best we can to go out there and impress and show and improve, and obviously always trying to get more and more partners along, and some sponsorship dollars for her to go into the future and go forward. So we're putting all our effort in it, and we'll see how it goes.
Yes, sir. You have a great night, and we'll be talking to you next week.
You too, guys. Thank you.
Take care, man.
That was Mark Rette of Rette Jones Racing. Always glad to have him on. Always glad to be able to pick his mind. It is really fun having an owner of a team and being behind the scenes and just get their thoughts on different topics is always a fun thing, and an opportunity we get here on Tuesday nights. Just very glad we get this opportunity. The unfortunate part, the Chicago Cubs hit a grand slam in the 4th. So going into the bottom of the 4th, the Cleveland Indians were down 7-0. On a brighter note, the Cleveland Indians have scored a run in the bottom of the 4th. It's now 7-1. We really got to rally together, Cleveland fans out there. So hopefully things start turning around a little bit for these Indians. I really don't want to go 7 games. It just kind of brings me back to the whole conversation that I had earlier, whether I would really want to sit and watch my team, knowing I having the opportunity, knowing that I can either say, hey, I never want to see the Browns in the Super Bowl, or yes, I would like to see the Browns swap places with the Cincinnati Bengals and be in 2 Super Bowls and know they lost. I don't know if I want to be able to put myself through that, watching it in hopes that they would win those games and knowing the end results. No. And so I do. That's kind of how I'm going to feel sitting in Game 7. I don't want to get all this build-up to be disappointed. I had to sit on the edge of my seat watching the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that game's a little bit more high-paced. I couldn't imagine sitting there watching Game 7 on the edge of my seat on a baseball game. As, you know, here we are 2 hours into the game, and we're only halfway. So hopefully the Indians do something in this inning, as they do got 2 on, 2 outs in the bottom of the 4th. But we got our NHL expert Izzo in the studio, so let's go ahead and get him on here and see what's going on the ice. Izzo, how you doing tonight?
Man, I tell you what, Jay, we got a slew of games going on right now, but I think we need to call the bartender because I think Joe Boo needs a refill going on for tonight for the Indians and everything. So, you know, I'm paying attention to it, but I got a slew of hockey games going on right now. So it's plus it's a very historical anniversary for the NHL tonight. So I'm going to discuss about that here in a little bit, but. It's been a good, productive night of some good hockey. We got the Columbus Blue Jackets taking on the Dallas Stars right now, Jay. I don't know if you're paying attention to that, but they're tied 2-2 halfway through the game and everything like that. So that's been a pretty good one to watch so far. But other than that, we got a slew of games going on tonight, and looking forward to watching some more hockey tonight.
Definitely.
How many TVs you got fired up, Izzo?
So it's, you know, I'm constantly channel flipping and everything back and forth between all the games. Having center ice is just, you know, it's just a blessing to have, really.
What do you got for us tonight? I know we got some power rankings that I know you want to jump into. Dying to hear your thoughts on how these teams are looking so far here, a couple weeks into the season.
Well, these power rankings, you know, they go from week to week. I really don't trust the power rankings beginning on early in the season because it's such a long season to go along. But I mean, just off the get-go, the one that, you know, really kind of gets me. Is what the Edmonton Oilers have been doing in the first couple weeks of this new season. You know, right now they're taking on the Toronto Maple Leafs here. So we got the Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, game going on. That kind of like a number 1 overall versus another one number 1 overall. Excuse me. So these guys are, really putting a name for themselves going head-to-head so far, so early in the season and everything. But I'm really liking what the Edmonton Oilers are really doing right now, even though their special teams haven't been really up to par. But they're first in the Pacific Division. They have a goal differential of a +10 right now, which is really something to lean on and everything, which means, which says to me that their 5-on-5 play, their even strength play has been very, very good. With Patrick Maroon, Milan Lucic, and Connor McDavid, these guys are really pulling their weight to try and make, that franchise turn around and everything. Goaltender Cam Talbot coming into the night was posting a 93.6 save percentage, which is something they sorely needed. Especially from the back end. Their defense is good enough. Their offense is certainly good enough, as we're seeing right now. And I could see them even really trying to bolster their goaltending, maybe later in the season. I don't know if Mike has heard rumors, but the New York Islanders are running a 3-goalie rotation, which hasn't been working really well for them. And now rumors have had it that Yaroslav Halak is on the trading block. So,
Yeah.
this could be a move for the Edmonton Oilers that they might want to pounce on here pretty soon. They have the draft picks, they have the cap space. He has a pretty hefty cap hit on the roster right now, making over $4.5 million, I think it is, and then making $5 million next season. So if the Edmonton Oilers really want to pull the trigger and try and get a true number one goaltender, this would be the time to do it. Like I said, their special teams have been somewhat mediocre. Their power play is only clicking at 14.8%. That number needs to come up quite a bit if they want to continue the success that they're having right now. Their penalty kill, their shorthanded penalty kill, has been above average. It's actually been pretty well. They're killing penalties at an 89.7% rate right now, which is good, which means they're blocking shots. They're clearing the crease in front of Cam Talbot right now, and everything seems to be going fairly well for them. And I'm really impressed with what the Edmonton Oilers have done so far, especially with the way their lackluster play is just not really, warranted any kind of fan base whatsoever. But, with the trades that they have made, the roster moves that they've made, getting rid of a few guys, especially some top picks, has really paid off for them. The signing of Milan Lucic, playing on the first line with Connor McDavid, has really just come into its own, in the first couple weeks of this season. So it's been pretty good. Your Columbus Blue Jackets have rebounded from starting off with an 0-2 start. I'm really liking with the way that they're doing right now. I think they're at number 15 in the power rankings, and if John Tortorella can keep these guys going in that right direction, they're going to be on the rise. They're only averaging 28 shots per game and 33 shots against a game. I'd like to see those numbers maybe flip-flop a little bit. They certainly have the firepower to really kind of produce more shots, but they're getting quality scoring chances, and that's what's helping them win games. Their Western road trip went fairly okay. They lost a couple games, but they really put on a shellacking on the Ducks the other night, scoring 4 first-period goals. Brendan Saw really showed up in that game, but I'm really liking what Sergei Bobrovsky's doing for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Coming into tonight, he was posting a 94% save percentage with 2 shutouts, which is very impressive, to get 2 early shutouts and everything like that. The only other goaltender right now that's really putting on a show like that was Devin Dubnyk and Jimmy Howard of the Red Wings. Jimmy Howard was on a shutout streak of over 155 minutes, which is a personal best for him. So I was glad to see that the goaltending has really been picking up for certain teams that needed goaltending to be picked up. So, the power play for Columbus is clicking at over 33%. Their penalty kill is only they're killing off penalties at 87%. So they're above average in their special teams department. I think that was one of the big aspects of their game that they really wanted to change. And I think John Tortorella has done an excellent job with that team and everything like that. So I've been really impressed with what Columbus has been doing, as of late and everything like that. So, I'm really looking forward. I know it's still early in the season and everything like that, but if they can hold on and really continue this kind of play and everything like that, I think they can go a fairly long way. As the game just went final in overtime, they beat the Dallas Stars 3-2 in overtime. So, they're getting they're getting to overtime, which is netting them points for the season standings and everything like that, which is important, especially early on in the year and everything like that. So, they pulled off a big win tonight at home, wearing their nice little retro jerseys tonight. So, I was really impressed with how they're moving the puck. The way their defense is communicating, the way they're playing in front of Bobrovsky, he seems poised to be on another Vezina Trophy hunt right now. So, fairly impressed with Columbus and what they've been doing, and I've just been really happy to see that John Tortorella has really found that nerve and has really struck that nerve to get these guys to perform, Jay.
I'm just trying not to get too excited. You got my hopes up last year. The Columbus Blue Jackets kind of fell flat on their face. I'm trying not to get my hopes too high.
Well, it's understandable, you know, with a coach coming into his, you know, second year and everything. He kind of had a full season last year, you know, minus the 7 games and everything. But now that he's in his second year, you know, coming into working that system that he works, you know, it's going to be a lot easier. Guys are going to be familiar with it and everything like that, you know. So they're still going to probably make some roster moves throughout the season, maybe at the trade deadline, depending on where they're sitting. Like I said, the key for their success this year is going to be Sergei Bobrovsky. If he stays healthy and he can still put up a save percentage that's, you know, 93% or better, they're going to have a very good chance of staying in games. They got to win those close games. They got to learn to protect those 1-goal games, 2-goal games, and they got to really grind it out and really, you know, just kind of stand at the forefront, you know, for their goaltender. With Brendan Saad, you know, being in his second year in Columbus, I expect a lot more production out of him. You know, these guys, they got a lot of young talent and everything mixed with a good core group of guys that are veterans and everything. So, you know, that whole Eastern, that division that they're in, you know, in the Metro, which I do believe is the division that they're in, you know, it's going to be, there's only maybe 2 or 3 teams, like I said, that can really compete at that top level, but you know, I can see them sneaking in at a wild card position, or even, you know, a 5 spot. So, you know, I think if they try and bring in another scoring presence and everything to try and solidify that top 6 scoring, I think they're going to be making some headway in their division, Jay.
Gotcha.
You brought up, Izzo, I got one question. You brought up the Islanders situation with the goaltending. First of all, is it surprising to you that he's on the block? And secondly, I'm thinking about this too. Is it surprising to you that Gosno, being a goaltender, is having so much trouble dealing with goaltenders going back to like Rick DiPietro? You know, I mean, they really have had a hard time with goaltenders.
Yeah, they've had a hard time with goaltenders. You know, Rick DiPietro was supposed to be the guy for them and everything. You know, and injuries kind of killed that. He also went through some personal demons that, you know, he's been having problems with, you know, as of, you know, the last few years and everything. But to see Halak on the trading block, I mean, he's kind of been around, floating around and everything like that. You know, I remember when he was with the Canadians and everything, when he was, you know, there with Carey Price when they were both young. I've actually got to see him play live when they beat the Pittsburgh Penguins in Game 7 in the conference finals a few years back, and he's a very sound goaltender. I'm kind of shocked that he's the one that they have on the block and everything right now, because I think he's the best. Right. I think he's the best option for them to win. You know, I mean, he backstopped them getting them into the playoffs. Unfortunately, he got hurt, and Thomas Greiss, the backup, had to really, you know, kind of show up, which he did. And, you know, and Thomas Greiss is a young German goaltender with a lot of promise and everything like that, but I don't really believe that he gives you the best option to win on a night-to-night basis. You know, Greiss has flopped around the league as a backup for the last couple of years, had a brief stint in Pittsburgh where he did fairly well, was out in the Western Conference there for a little while. You know, he did fairly well. Can he be a number 1 goaltender? Yes. Can he win? Yes. But I just don't see him as the elite franchise goaltender that, you know, some teams possess. You know, you're lucky enough to get 1 goaltender. To have 2 number 1 goaltenders in your system, maybe something like what the Pittsburgh Penguins have with Marc-Andre Fleury and Matt Murray, even with the Dallas Stars with Antti Niemi and Kari Lehtinen. You know, that whole situation in Dallas kind of imploded on themselves last year, as we all saw, as they had that monumental collapse in the playoffs. You know, where you spend a lot of money on a number 1 goaltender, but yet you're splitting time. You know, you got to have, you know, taken with what the Islanders are doing with that 3 goalie rotation. All these guys are not getting that. They're not getting that ice time. You know, that preparation, those reps, and everything like that to win on a night-to-night basis and everything like that. You know, Halak came off a fairly strong World Cup of hockey and performed very well, you know, and the fact that I see the Islanders offering up on a trade block, they have to have some sort of backup plan that they truly believe in. So that's why I feel that, Halak could be a steal, for teams that are looking for goaltending, which is something I think that maybe Toronto might do, with Friedrich Anderson, although he's been playing great the last couple games and everything like that. Edmonton, like I said, being another team that might want to try and shore up their starting goaltending. Even Winnipeg, you might see a team like Winnipeg try and step up and maybe offer something. Jacob Trouba has requested a trade from Winnipeg, so that could be a scenario that these two franchises might look at right now. But to me, Mike, it's extremely shocking to see that the Islanders are willing to give up Jaroslav Halak right now.
Right, and that's why I asked, because I follow the Islanders, but I don't follow hockey to the extent that you do. And I know, based on last year's playoffs into this year, I was really surprised to see him, on the trading block. And at least you agree. So we're thinking the same way. But it would surprise me when I saw that. Yeah,
and like I said, he's definitely a guy that can that you can build out from, whatever type of franchise, whatever franchise is out there that wants the number one goalie. He's definitely it. He's had playoff success. He showed that he can get a team to the playoffs. And to me, stats are one thing, but if you know how to win games, and especially win close games, that's all that's important to me. If you can get me to that, that second, season and everything, getting into the postseason, and really perform well, teams are going to take a look into that. He could be one of those names that we might see in the expansion draft and everything like that. If he doesn't move to, if he moves to a place where they have, legitimate backups and everything like that. But with what has been going around. The Boston Bruins have had some goaltending injury issues. Tuukka Rask finally came back for the Bruins and everything like that. The Kings are without Jonathan Quick and Jeff Sackhoff right now. They brought in Peter Budaj, which is a name I haven't seen since, after Patrick Waugh retired for the Colorado Avalanche. So that should tell you, he's been in the league for a very long time. That could be another destination. The Kings could definitely use a goaltender like Halak if it's cap friendly for him. So, there could be a lot of moves here. There could be a lot of situations that really benefit the Islanders if they really want to pull this. They're going to really request a lot of payoff for a guy like Halak, especially with the cap hit and what I think he's worth, potential wise and everything like that. He's still fairly young. In his mid to late 20s, I do believe still. It can really help a team trying to get over that fence right now. So I'm going to be paying attention to this, like under a microscope, attention and everything like that. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see what's going to happen or what transpires over the next week or two, guys. But moving along, we've had a couple milestones this past week, which were pretty significant. Evgeny Malkin netted his 300th goal the other night against Philadelphia on Saturday night, I do believe it was, which was a pretty exciting game to watch. Pittsburgh, Philly, that's a historic rivalry dating back for years and years and years on end, but. Penguins managed to come out on top of that game, 5-4. Like I said, Evgeny Malkin scored his 300th career goal. Also for the Minnesota Wild, Zach Parise netted his 300th goal, which he is the third Minnesota native to do so. That was a pretty big milestone for him. Talking or reading all the articles that I've read, getting your 300th goal seems to be one of the harder things to do in the league, and he put a pretty good shot on net. It was a perfect snipe on my standards. As a goaltender myself, I certainly would not have wanted to have seen a shot like that. He netted his 300th career goal and everything like that as a Minnesota Wild, especially in his home state. I imagine that was pretty special for him. We also had some sadder news Ottawa Senators goaltender Craig Anderson took a personal leave of absence to be with his wife, who was diagnosed with cancer. Thus rejoining the team, he has put up astounding numbers. Put up a shutout the other night, and everything like that. Has been really playing well, playing for his wife and everything. So all of our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out to Craig Anderson right now, who's dealing with a lot, not only with playing in the NHL as a goaltender, but also for his wife, who was recently diagnosed with cancer and everything like that. So, like I said, my heart pours out to him. I know how tough a job being a goaltender is. I've done it, all my life through, growing up and everything in the high school and everything like that. So it was, it was pretty special to see him come back to the team and really perform the way he did the last couple games and everything, putting up a shutout and putting up a fairly respectable save percentage the last couple games, something around 96-97% save percentage the last couple games. So it was really cool to see him get inspired and really use that inspiration to translate to production for his team and everything like that. With that being said, like I said earlier before we got started, today marks a significant anniversary in the NHL, something that really, truly changed the game. On this date, back in November 1st, 1959, one of the greatest goaltenders to ever play the game, Jacques Plante, donned the first goalie mask, which was, something that had never been seen till that point. The way we got to this point, I do believe they were playing the Rangers. The Canadians were playing the Rangers, and Jacques Plante was in net for the Canadians. He was responsible for them winning 5 straight cups there from, I think, up to like 1957, 58. They won 5 cups in a row. But he had taken a slap shot to the face, which had cut him from the outside of his lip all the way up to his nostril. In the waning minutes of the second period, which he at that point in time there were no backup goaltenders. Backup goaltenders were not in existence in the league at this point in time. So the way that it worked back in the day is you had one spare goalie that sat in the stands, and if one of the goalies got hurt, that spare goalie could play for either team. For whichever goalie got hurt, he can fill in for him and everything. It's not like today where you have a backup goalie sitting on the bench. But the legend goes, he went into the locker room and was poking at the cut and everything, which was pretty bad from all the stories that you hear, that his nose was on the, I do believe, the left side of his face, a couple inches off and everything, because he took it right in the kisser. He managed to get stitched back up, and when he came back out to play, he brought out his goalie mask. Legendary coach Toe Blake did not want him to don the mask because he felt that he would, lose his confidence or, become a coward and everything like that, which we all know now and today that that's just not the case anymore. But he donned the first goalie mask, which was nothing but he had a plaster mold made of his face and everything like that, and there was no padding on it. Your ears were still exposed, the top of your head was still exposed, and you just had 2 straps going behind your head and everything. But it really changed the outlook of the game, and Jacques Plante was a pioneer, always designing new goalie masks, trying to make them better and safer and more protective and everything like that. If you look at goalie masks today, they have the cages and everything on them with all kinds of padding. They're made out of Kevlar. They're designed to really redirect the force of the shot if you take one off the head. And let me tell you, taking them off the face and off the head is just not, it's not fun, guys. I've taken countless shots to the face. And it's like being inside of a bell while it's being told, dude. It's just not fun. The outlines of your face are ringing and everything like that, despite all the padding you have. You can get the days knocked out of you. You get all dizzy and you see lights and everything like that. But, it's just not fun staring one right in the face. And, it kind of shows you the toughness and bravery that the old school guys like Terry Sawchuk, Jacques Plante and all these guys really had, because they were protected from the neck down. They didn't wear any helmets. It just wasn't part of the game. And when sticks got more creative, curved blades came in because of Bobby Hall and Stan Mika. Shots were getting faster and harder and everything like that. Goalies had to do something. So it was a historic day for the NHL. Which led to the goalie masks that we see today that are fabulously painted with all kinds of artwork and everything like that. There's a couple that bring off the top of my head. Curtis Joseph, who they called Cujo, always had the painting of the rabid dog on his helmet and everything like that. Eddie the Eagle Belfour, who always had an eagle painted on his helmet when he was with the Blackhawks and the Stars and even the Maple Leafs. Marty Turco was another guy that was pretty cool, who had a pretty cool helmet. He had a gargoyle sitting up on top of a stone wall, which was significant to him being the brick wall in front of the net. Olaf Kolzig, who was the Washington Capitals goaltender for a long period of time. They called him Ole the goalie. He had Godzilla painted on his mask and everything like that. So, it was always pretty cool to see different goaltenders and the different artworks that they had on their goalie masks and everything. And that's all owed to guys like Jacques Plante and everything like that, who really innovated the game and really, saved a lot of guys' teeth at the same point in time. So, a hats off to Jacques Plante, who's probably one of the greatest goaltenders to ever play the game. And it was probably one of the greatest Montreal Canadian goaltenders of all time, with guys like Ken Dryden and Patrick Wall and all those other guys. He really backstopped a lot of good teams with Jean Beliveau and Maurice the Rocket Richard and everything like that, especially in an age and a day where, it was probably the most dangerous position to play in sports at that period of time during the 50s and 60s, guys. So hats off to Jacques Plante. He's a goalie god. He's one of my idols, and we have a lot to thank for him, especially today in today's game and everything with, what goalies are, now known for is their goal helmets. So it changed the game. It saved a lot of lives, and it saved a lot of teeth.
Izzo, I have a question relating to that. I think it was your post I saw that even with, and you were talking about teeth, the video I think that you posted with the guy from Tampa Bay getting his two front teeth knocked out.
Yes, Ben Bishop.
That puck had to go through that cage at just the right angle, or the wrong angle, depending on how you look at it.
Well, when you look at the cages now, when you see goal cages and everything like that, the way the cages are formed, they call them cat-eye cages. These cat-eye cages, the holes in the cage are small enough where a puck won't get through. It's not that the puck got through and caught him in the face. It's just the sheer velocity and momentum of the puck that when it hit him in the face, it shook what it does is it shakes your head. It rattles your head. And essentially that's what happened, is it rattled his two front teeth out of his face. It was something to be, I thought he just had a strap broken, and when I was zooming in closely on it and everything, I had to pause it, on the TV, and then when I looked, I seen him picking up the chiclets and everything and handing them to the trainer. He had lost, his two front teeth, but when you take a shot like that, it really just rattles, it just shakes your head and vibrates your head. Most of that force from that shot, is dispersed in a manner where, you're not gonna get the full brunt of it, but it's still enough to really do a lot of damage and everything like that. And that was one of those cases like that. He took that shot, and it wasn't even square on. It kind of caught him off the lower side part of the mask, but it was just It had enough of velocity and speed to rattle two teeth out of his head, which was something I've never seen before. That was a first for me.
Yeah, with the cage, I wouldn't think it would happen. But like you say, it was big enough to go through. The hole in the cage was big enough to have for the puck to go through.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, it wasn't the case that the puck went through the cage. It was just the case of that mask being hit so hard and just the reverberation that your face feels, will just rattle, it'll rattle teeth out of your head and everything. That was definitely a first for me. I've had 2 teeth knocked out from similar shots like that. I had a filling that was cracked completely in half. Taking one right off the side of the face on the side where I had a filling. So I kind of know his pain and everything like that, but luckily enough, I still have mostly my 2 front teeth. I have a little chip on the front of my tooth after taking a stick that got through my mask. But, I've never seen or had to deal with anything like what Ben Bishop did the other night, but that was, when you listen to that, that sound and everything, it just kind of makes you cringe and shake a little bit. So I kind of felt for him there for a little bit. So he finished the game, he put the helmet back on and finished the game. And, that's what hockey players do. You get hurt, you get fixed up, you go back out and you finish the game. And that's why, that was another special moment for me. You see guys get cut in the face, get stitched up, come back out. That was just another case of that, and that's why I have so much fun with hockey today, guys.
Definitely love being able to learn something new. It's always great about having someone that has the passion, such as yourself, in a sport that I don't know quite as much in, or really anything close to what you know. You get an opportunity to learn something new, and the whole hockey mask in this day in NHL history, is really cool to be able to learn something new and be able to take that away from the show. It is now that we're at actually overtime. Any other key points that you needed to hit or wanted to hit tonight before we get this wrapped up?
Hey, like I said, we have a couple games that are getting ready to come on later tonight and everything like that. So we got another Battle of California later going on tonight at 9:30. The Anaheim Ducks take on the LA Kings. So be looking forward to that one. Also, the Sharks will take on the Coyotes tonight, so that one's going to be something to watch. And then for Wednesday night rivalry tomorrow night, we got the Red Wings playing the Flyers. The Flyers are at 4-5-1 right now. The Red Wings have been playing fairly solid hockey, and they're at 6-4 right now. So that's going to be on NBC Sports tomorrow at 7 p.m. So grab your popcorn, grab your favorite beer, and tune in to NBC SN tomorrow night at 7 o'clock and watch the Wings and the Flyers do battle.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Izzo, as always, it's been a pleasure. Glad to have you on here. Look forward to having you back next Tuesday night. You enjoy your week. Obviously, enjoy your night with all the hockey action going on tonight, and we'll be catching up with you soon.
All right, guys. Take it easy. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes, sir. Mike, let's get things wrapped up Friday night, and let them know where to find you.
You got it. Thanks, CJ. Friday night, another interesting show as far as diversity. I'm going to have a driver in Rowan Pennock, who is the Whalen Modified driver. So we'll see about his season and how it went. And also having him on for the diverse reason that he is involved in a business venture with his crew chief and the crew chief's significant other, and they are selling wheels. So any of you racers that have been on the show, either Steve's show or CJ's show, or with us here on Monday through Wednesday, if you're looking for a wheel, you'll have to listen on Friday night to get all the info on how to contact them and so forth and so on. So we'll find out more about their business and what they sell and what they sell for, which wheels they sell to which race cars, et cetera, and who exactly they serve in terms of where in the area they service. And I believe they would send their items anywhere in the United States. Like I said earlier, they are headquartered in the Northeast, but I believe they would send the merchandise anywhere in the United States anyway. But we'll find out more about that on Friday night. Also, hoping to have Bob Kleinen on, who recently got honor last week. We had Ann Young on, who was involved with that event. Bob is celebrating this year 40 years in auto racing. He's the announcer and basically the PR man, announcer, and historian of Riverhead Raceway, and one of them, him and Marty Himes are the two people I would say most intimately that I'm aware of that know the history of auto racing on Long Island. But you could ask Bob anything, and he can come up with it off the top of his head. So we'll have those individuals hopefully on Friday night, as well as Kyle Soper, who took part in his first truck race, or trying to qualify anyway for his first truck race, his first truck weekend, put it that way, at Martinsville this past weekend. So we'll talk to Kyle about how that went. And again, even if he didn't have a tremendous showing positionally, like CJ and I have said many times on the 110 Nation, just being there for your first time is a acknowledgement of your talent in any case. So we'll have those three people on, hopefully, on Friday night. Two of the three are confirmed, and I'm waiting to hear from Bob. So we'll have those people hopefully on. You can get me, as CJ said earlier, on my Facebook page, my personal page, the 110 Nation pages where I post articles, and I will be writing a golf article within the next 2 weeks when they come back to Las Vegas, and they are back in the United States. They're over in China right now, so there's not a lot of dispatches coming out of China. But when they get back to the United States, the tournaments more closely. And also you can get me on my Twitter, finally, at Stats108, STATS 108. And that's where you can find me, and we hope that you continue to listen for the rest of the week, and my show included, and Saturday and Sunday as well. CJ.
Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow night, 110 Nation Sports Show. 8 o'clock, we got Hannah Newhouse joining us. Also, we'll have Shannon Boylan, one of our writers, and we'll have Shorty in the house to do our picks for this week. And some of us had a decent week. I went 8-4-1. Mike went 7-5-1, and Shorty and Shannon both went 6-6-1. As we work on trying to improve our records this week. Don't forget Twitter. You can find us at 110 Nation. Find me at CJ Sports 1 to 110 Nation. You can find them at 110 Nation Sports. You can find me on my personal fan page, Mr. CJ Sports. Also, check out our site, www.the110nationsports.com, for all the latest going on here at the 110 Nation. Also, got to make sure to thank Fit for Life, Snafu Seasoning, I-95 Sportsnet, Mile High Radio, for being on board and helping us continue to grow. Without these guys, it would not be possible. Got to thank Mark Rette of Rette Jones Racing for joining us again tonight. Also got to thank Izzo, our NHL expert, joining us as well. I'm glad to have them both on the show. Looking forward to tomorrow night. Until then.
Thanks for listening to the 110 Nation Sports Show with Mr. CJ Sports. You are a part of the 110 Nation. So be sure to visit the110nation.com for everything related to the show. You can follow CJ on Twitter at 110nation and on Facebook at 110nation Sports. Until next time.